minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Welcome to Unfiltered Reptile Podcast presents Fluff and Grow segment with MJ, Truly Yours, and Dave Levinson. What is good, Dave Levinson? The myth, the legend is here.
I'm excited. It's going to be good.
Not at a Walmart parking lot. This is official. Like, I have you in your chair, buddy. Woo.
I dragged this chair in this room for this interview.
Oh, man, I am super worked up. Dave, it's literally been a year since we've actually put out any content on this channel. So before we move into things, I want to say thank you to anyone who's tapping in right now. If this is your first time tapping in, what is good? I'm your boy, MJ. This is Dave Levinson. Do us all a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell. That way you're on top of every single Unfiltered Reptile Podcast episode we drop here. I don't want to commit to anything. I mean, we're going to see how tonight goes. I mean, I don't want to put pressure on Dave. He's here right now. But if it's up to me, we do this shit every day. But who knows? What can we commit to right now? Maybe a week, a month? I mean, I don't want, am I putting pressure on you right now, Dave? Like, what can we do? What can we give the people? What can we say? Like, I'm just curious.
We'll be back in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay. Give us 2 weeks.
2 weeks on this first one. 2 weeks.
I mean, can we be serious though, Dave? I mean, what's kind of bringing this to the surface of you wanting to do podcasts is like you have crazy ideas and you feel like there's a lot of stuff that's not being talked about on any platform. And this is, I think you're tired of not talking about it. Is that correct?
I miss talking about it. Some of my favorite times are at the show just chatting with people about stuff in the industry. So I fiend for this.
Well, I cannot wait for this because I could tell you what, there's so much that the Erp family is ready for. It's going to be heat. I got to tell you, though, this episode is brought to you by Redline Shipping. Shout out to Robin Markland over at Redline Shipping. But, guys, the future of shipping is now here. A lot of different options you could choose for shipping, but Redline's it. I don't know about you. Well, listen, I can't be real biased with Dave. Dave, what is it that you use for shipping, if you don't mind me asking? Like I said, whatever. We didn't pre-talk about this, but I'm asking you right now. What is it that you use for shipping, Dave?
Reptiles Express. Me and Mike have gone back about 8-10 years in the hobby. I've known him forever. I just kind of stuck with them over the years.
Now, at the end of the day, there's so many different things that like I feel like are out now in the industry. I mean, do you feel like you got to find what it is that hits home with you? I feel like Reptile Express is something you've been working with for years, I would assume, right? Like for as long as you can remember.
Yeah. Anytime I've shipped anything, it's pretty much been through them.
Now, why do you feel like tonight's such an important episode? I mean, I know why, first and foremost, right? But for the people who are tapping in, and by the way, shout out to all the early birds. I see you guys in the comments. We'll say hi to you guys here in just a second. But what do the people have to look forward to tonight's episode? First ERP episode in over a year. What is in store for tonight coming from you, Dave?
Well, anybody who knows Junior, he's a character, real fun guy, really smart. One of the smarter guys I feel like I know in the hobby. And honestly, I don't think enough people get to talk to him or hear about what he has to say. So I think it's going to be a good episode because of that.
How far back do you and Junior go, if you don't mind me asking? I kind of remember what you said on the podcast, but I'm just, for the people out there, you and Junior go back for how long?
Over 10 years, maybe 15, but at least 10 to 12 years.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, listen, I can tell you what, Dave, there's people excited in the chats right now. I want to say shout out to Big Mike over at 1776 Exotics. Go give him a follow on Instagram. Sound Serpents, Sean Perry. What's up, Sean? Thanks for tapping in. Got the homie Josh from Silver Cash 86. What is up, buddy? Nasarg. Is that how you say that? I still haven't gotten confirmation. Okay, say the other part for me there, Dave.
Oh, I can't see that from here, buddy. I'm way far away from this. You're all the reading.
Oh, you son of a bitch. It says Raj.
Yeah,
I think it says Rajput. What does that mean? Either way, I like it. I think that's sick as fuck. Rajput. That has to spell Rajput. Rajput. Anyways, thanks for tapping in. Blacklist Exotics. How you doing? Thanks for tapping in. Scale Fins and Feathers. What is good? Thanks for tapping in. The homie Ricky Bobby, SRT in the building. What is good? Thanks for tapping in. Deviant Glass. What is good? Thanks for tapping in. Hey, I got to say, Dave, you currently went through some sort of a brand change within the last year, I would say, right? I kind of want to talk about that real quick before we get things rolling here.
Yeah, no, we always kind of wanted some kind of company name that we could work with. For the longest time in the hobby, when I got into it back in the early snake bites days, everything was called paint jobs. And I always kind of wanted a name that would kind of go with that. So I've been thinking custom scales for years. Just kind of go with the theme, so on and so forth. Finally committed to it about 7 months ago for the Vegas show. Showed up there, new banners, new everything, started talking about it. But it was overdue, something that I was hoping to do for a long time. And honestly, after Justin changed his name and his logo, I kind of used the excuse to do the same thing.
So for, I'm not going to say, man, Facebook, I don't want to say it's outdated, but for the big new wave of people who come into this, they mainly go to Instagram first until they find a species that draws them to Facebook, right? So that being said, I want to help you get custom scales out there more, man. I got to say, the logo is amazing. The logo is, I thought you had the post where you showed the development of the logo, like the inspiration, but I guess that's on Facebook, right?
That's on Facebook. That's on the personal. I could dig that up and send it to you.
Okay, we'll have that ready for the next episode. But first and foremost, just for anyone out there who's curious about looking at what you have available other than shows, best thing to do would obviously follow you on Instagram. So make sure you go follow Dave Levinson's business here, Custom Scales, on Instagram. But other than that, what's another good way for people to see what you have available here, Dave?
Of course, just Morph Market. Facebook and Instagram are all outlets at the moment. So check us out on there. We always have a lot of ads on Morph Market.
Awesome. Good stuff. Guys, go get his followers up right now. And I got to say, man, the productions I've gotten from you this year, which I believe was 2 boas and then that spot nose, double het, pos triple het, whatever more, how the morphs add up. Really crazy stuff. I just got to say, I'm excited. And guys, Dave really works with some amazing production. So please go give him a follow and don't sleep on this stuff. But yeah, I think it's game time, buddy. I think it's ready to let's strap this on like your goddamn mittens when you made your spaghetti just recently and made this sound check late. So just sound check always going to be late. I mean, I guess we could talk about this.
No. I'll be better. I promise.
Well, you know what? I'm better now because it's about that time for this ERP episode to get on its way. Ladies and gentlemen, we got Junior for JMG going down right now. You ready, Dave?
Yes, sir.
Let's go.
Blue face, baby. Yeah, I'm every woman's fantasy. Blue face, baby. Mama always told me I was gonna break hearts. I can surf off stupid. Don't be mad at me. I wanna see you bust down. Bend that shit over on the deck. Yeah, make that shit clap. She threw it back, so I had to double back on the gang. Smacking high off the drug. I tried to tell myself 2 times, but enough. The nigga relapsed on the dead low. Ain't no running, Tatiana. You gon' take these damn shows, Tatiana. I beat the pussy up, now it's a murder scene. Keep shit player, Tatiana, like you ain't never even heard of me. Like, bust down.
Damn, I'm very aroused. Woo! It's been a minute since I've got to hear that intro, but here we are, ladies and gentlemen. JMG in the building. What's up, Junior?
Not much. Going good. Yeah, this is the first episode in like a year, isn't it? Like last one's like 11 months ago, I think.
Like just shy. We're about 7 days shy from official year. I think the 26th or the 27th of October of last year was our last episode.
Oh, okay.
And even then we were doing like one a month. It was very like, Steven and Des, God bless them. They just have so much going on over there. And it was really hard to commit to the way I was trying to get them to commit, but we're back. It's all good. We're ready to rock and roll. I got to tell you what, first and foremost, thanks for being here. Obviously, Dave, thanks for facilitating this. This wouldn't have been the same if I would have interviewed without Dave, because I'm so keen on listening to who people mention that I don't like I've ever heard of. And I remember Dave came on the last episode I ever had with Forrest Fanning, rest in peace, Forrest. And he mentioned Junior. We mentioned your dad, and then obviously Junior. Actually, no, you mentioned Junior first, which then brought to your dad, right? But who's Jeff? Are you Jeff? Who's Jeff?
I'm Jeff Jr., and then my dad's also Jeff. So there's two Jeffs. So it causes sometimes confusion. Okay. So.
Well, Dave, why are you laughing?
I don't know. I just loving the conversation.
Because I'm here.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
it's also dreamy, right? So, I mean, anyways, yeah, listen, I couldn't help but to hear how much Dave was inspired based off the relationship he just had with you and your dad. Obviously it means something if he's talking about it on a goddamn episode that he had to drive almost. How far do you have to drive to that Walmart parking lot, David? I mean, God, it was such an iconic episode, but I mean, it was a
35
mission.
minutes.
35. And we waited on the live. We literally hung on the live. Force is like, this isn't gonna work. Dude, this is dumb. This is stupid. I'm like, dude, no, we're gonna be all right. So, anyways, for him to make that episode happen and then bring you up, I took notes. Okay, and instantly I was like, I want to bring Junior on the show, because this guy who took forever to come on Unfiltered is talking about somebody who also isn't on these podcasts, from what I can see, from what I'm into. So anyways, you're here, man. And I'm sure people want to know, what is it that you do and what your foundation's been and what's making you relevant here in the industry today.
Well, more recently, in like the past probably decade, people really know me for hognose snakes, and that's like my primary focus, and that's my favorite species, Western hognose. But I've kept and bred reptiles for a very long time, and actually I started out with hognose kind of initially first. Actually, I had pet snakes, and then I kind of developed into wanting to breed them. And at that time I didn't have a lot of money when I was like around 12 or 13 years old, and at that time I only had like 3 hognose. And I already bred a pair of hognose at that age in 10-gallon aquariums. And I wanted to get into something that had more genetic diversity as far as morphs and was affordable and a fun project to work on. And leopard geckos caught my attention, and started breeding leopard geckos. And well, actually I kind of started out with my dad, because my dad was always taking me to reptile shows. And, I was getting leopard geckos because I was telling him I wanted to start these breeding projects and stuff. And he had bred reptiles, actually a lot more amphibians. He bred a lot of frogs, but he also had like redfoot tortoises and stuff way back.
And Junior, born into it, I'm assuming, right? Like from as long as you can remember, that was your life, I'm assuming, right?
A little bit. My dad actually got rid of most of his collection though when we moved out of Garfield Heights, and that was around the age of right after I turned 7. And he had, mostly frogs. He did breed some leopard geckos, and he had redfoot tortoises. And, when we moved and everything, he got rid of most of his collection. He kept his redfoot tortoises for a few years after. But, my interest kind of stayed there, probably because I was exposed to reptiles and, I was around animals all the time. So I really, really liked, all these species. But, I primarily really liked, any amphibian reptile I really liked. But my dad actually never kept snakes when I was a kid. And so when I first, I guess, saw snakes, I really gravitated towards them. And I really, really liked snakes just in general, a lot more than pretty much any other species. And so I kept wanting, a pet snake. By the age of 8, I was finally allowed to have a pet snake. Is eastern milk snake. And then, a few years later, I got a corn snake and a ball python. And, it wasn't even a few years later. It was basically a year and a half later, I ended up getting, a hognose snake. And then when I was around 12, 13, and I was building up a small little collection, and I wanted to start breeding leopard geckos because I was always reading Reptiles magazine. And that was a really big contributor. And then just, finding information in general. And my dad would take me out herping and stuff sometimes too. And we'd fish all the time as well. But
Nice.
As he had taken me to reptile shows, because I was always begging him to take me to reptile shows, he's like, it re-sparked that interest on his behalf.
Junior, where are you located? I'm so sorry. Where are you located at?
Ohio. I'm about 30 minutes south of Cleveland. Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
Boring old Ohio. So yeah, so like the Noah reptile shows, those are like some of the first reptile shows in the whole world. Started in like Ohio, like the Noah reptile shows, the swap meets and stuff. And then the Columbus reptile show. I don't know I guess they always called it the All Ohio Reptile Show. But anyway, so I would have my dad take me to those, and that's when I kept at that point I probably had like 6 leopard geckos, maybe only 5. Then my dad's like, do you want me to start breeding them with you? Because we could do this as a joint project and everything. And, we can get, a lot more of them. We can, actually do some serious breeding projects, pretty much inferring that I'm a kid and I don't have any money. So I'm not really going to get too far at that point. So then we started breeding geckos together.
Wow. That's epic. And what was the age? Like when it became like a business, even you, right? How old were you? Like, what were you like?
Pretty young, actually. I was really dedicated, and so was my dad, and I really wanted to, pursue this thing. And so, like, at the age of 13 is, like, when we started, like, breeding some leopard geckos, but actually going to reptile shows and starting up a website and doing shipments to the Ham Germany show. At that point, I was 15 years old. So within, like, 2.5 years is, like, quite a bit had changed. So that's the thing, if you put your mind to stuff and you just pursue things, a lot of things can change over a short period of time, just like 2-3 years.
I'm glad you brought that up. So, obviously we're in a different time of age, right? There's a lot of kids in the opportunity to actually do make this as a business, that they make the right moves. All it takes is some mom and dad right pocket money, and they could all of a sudden be into some projects that give them some crazy money. But if you have a kid in that position, what did you do with school? Like, was school still important to you? Did you make sure you excelled and finish it off, or did you fuck off in school? And you can be really honest in this. I'm
Dave is laughing because Dave knows the answer. I'm a high school dropout. I'm a 0.0 GPA, certain, because I
don't mean to laugh. I cheated. Hey, listen, I cheated my whole way, all the way to college. Okay. And I only did it because of sports, but okay, I don't mean to laugh.
No, it's funny. My friends would come over, and they'd see my mom and stuff, and they'd be like, hey, can we see Jeff's report card? Because I had one that had a 0.0 GPA, and so It was like the talk of like our circle or group, and so my mom brought it out, showed it to them, and my mom actually had it on the refrigerator. You'll like this one, and the kids were like, is Dan and Greg, and they were like, well, why do you have it on the refrigerator? Is that to like basically like as form of a punishment to like display that on the fridge? And she goes, well, no, because I have my sisters, or sorry, my daughters, because my mom's saying this, I have my daughter's report card up there too, and it's my sister, and her GPA was always like perfect. It was like a 3.7, so
All right, I want to roll into things, obviously. So once you got obviously the age of being 18 and kind of into adulthood, where were you at with the business? I mean, you move out of home right away. Did you kind of stay at home for a while and just kind of built the legacy, or what happened as you got older? I'm curious.
Stayed at home for way too long, over the suggested period of time for most people. And like, yeah,
hey, I'm not mad at that. Okay, listen, I have cousins that are like they're in their 30s and they haven't left home, but their parents are loaded, and I'm like, not that that's a good thing, but I'm like, holy shit, like that must be nice. Like you never paid rent and you're how old? You know what I mean? It's like fuck, but also it could be a double-edged sword too, you know what I mean? So, but anyways, continue, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's like my whole life is, I guess, is like in a sense is pretty unorthodox, like the way things developed and everything. In school, I was always kind of somewhat defiant and would always question teachers. Never really believed anything that they kind of like really said, just because it was the whole hammering of like, hey, you have to do this, you have to get good grades, you have to go to college, this is the only way. And I had seen at an early age people that did not follow that course and were successful because they worked hard and determination.
Right.
So and the school just wasn't the place for me. All of the subjects I didn't think were, of course, interesting. Every now and then, if we had our own thing or a project that we were able to work on, and we were kind of like able to dive into our own interests and incorporate, things about like my interests, such as reptiles and amphibians, then I did okay. But I think school is somewhat important. The English, I think English is important. Aside from that, maybe a little bit of history, and everything else is like, you could pretty much just leave it. It's not really going to get you anywhere, I don't think. And it's, you know, like math and stuff. I mean, you're not going to use calculus in real life, you know, so.
I think it was, I don't know what year it was. Maybe Dave, you might know, probably not. When Forrest offered, I think it was the day of graduation, he offered Stephen Cush, or it couldn't even be before graduation. He offered Stephen Cush the job over at Cold Blooded Cafe, and Stephen politely declined only because he thought his parents, no way in hell, you know, they're paying for the college. Like, you have school all paid for you. So what did Forrest do? He drove his ass up there and spoke to the parents face to face. And that motherfucker, that sneaky freak, he closed the deal and got them to say, okay, fuck college, move down there, Indianapolis, go start your life down at RepTech. And hey, thank God it happened. I mean, we're blessed for Forrest's man, all I gotta say is that if you don't want to be in school, don't do school. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, if it's not the place for you, yeah, it's not going to do you any good. And some people, you know, excel there, and you know it benefits them. But yeah, I didn't know that about Steven. I didn't know that Forrest went up there and had a word with his parents, and that's how the whole you know thing was started with Steven actually you know, being a mentorship with like Forrest down there.
At a young age, man. I mean, I have pictures of Steven, you know, pre-peach fuzz, like before he could even grow peach fuzz on his face. The guy, you know, what's crazy, he developed in such a man child now. You see him, and he's like, oh my God.
Oh, he's huge.
Yeah, right. But like,
looks like one of those anime characters from high school. Like they're gigantic and they're like ripped, and nobody that age is actually that big and ripped, yet Steven is. Like the characters from JoJo Bizarre Adventure. They're like,
I heard they had him on straight Missouri feed for 1.5 years straight before they actually came him. But no, listen, like everything is, it's crazy how things align in this fucking industry, but people are brought together for a reason. If you hear that story, it's kind of like insane. Like, what parent would ever let that happen? But I mean, Steven is meant to be in this industry. Like, you know, I've been close with this guy for many years, and he's one of my younger, older homies. And meaning, like, he makes me feel really immature the way I think of things and whatnot, and has made me kind of get an idea on how, like, kind of the same as Forrest. Like, me and Forrest, you know, Forrest was a lot more advanced than me because he's been in the game for like 10 plus years before I got into it. But Forrest loved me because he saw the younger version of him. Like, he saw all the things I was doing, or, you know, even thinking about that he used to do before he grew into the person that he was. You know what I mean? But everything's all systematic, you know, like everything is meant to align for a reason. And I'm just curious on what relationships you built off that you are still happy to have to this day that you could think of here, Junior, from other than your dad, obviously. What are some people that maybe were mentoring you or getting you on the right foot to success here with what you have going on right now?
Well, it's an interesting one. I'm actually fairly I guess solitary to a degree, so I don't really have that many, like, you know, closer friends. I have Dave Levinson. You know, I got a cat too. My cat is luckily leaving me alone. But yeah, it was yeah, it's very unfortunate, you know, with Forrest and everything, you know, passing. But you know, that's what's like. Forrest and Steven are both you know, wealth of knowledge, you know, as far as, you know, just the species that they, you know about, and all the, you know, you could talk to either one of them and they could just, you know, tear off all kinds of different scientific names and species, you know, and just information about that individual animal. And, you know, so it's nice to meet people like that. You know, over here, I mean, my immediate family has been extremely supportive. And, you know, it's as far as mentors, I mean, I guess I kind of look to like a bunch of like various people and like things I've probably researched in literature and just kind of built off of that. But, you know, I definitely have to say probably my dad, my mom, although, you know, they're kind of, my mom's not really into reptiles at all. And as far as knowledge goes, as far as reptiles, hers is pretty limited, but she actually works for me part-time now, helping with the business.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, you know, but yeah, I don't really like Dave. Can you think of anybody that's been kind of like a mentor to me? Because, you know, Dave knows that I'm a pretty solitary person.
No, and again, you know, just kind of put in a time frame on what you've done in the hobby, though. So when you were 12 years old, what year was that?
That would have been like 99.
99. So 99 is when you started going to shows. So like you said, the Ohio scene was pretty big back then. One more thing, just to get a magnitude of what you were doing. throw a few numbers at me. Your peak year for producing leopard geckos. I know you had some pretty high years over the years. And then how many new mutations did you work on through leopard geckos?
Well, leopard geckos, it's a lot of polygenics. It's a lot of selectively line breeding. So it's kind of creating your own lineages. So we didn't have any actual hereditary mutations like recessive or like incomplete dominant or dominant. But my dad and I developed hyperxanthic bloods, black bloods. We had our own line of hypermelanistic, which was charcoals. We had lavender stripes, although that one it worked. I guess it could be, it is its own lineage. I just kind of have kind of pretty high standards of what should be considered lineages, like consistent different characteristics for a particular line bred trait, to be considered like a new lineage. But I'm trying to think if we had any other ones with leopard geckos. We did. We made a lot of first leopard gecko morph combos before anybody else. At that time, so we did a lot with leopard geckos. We actually had the first whiteout. We developed the whiteout fat tail gecko, patternless, the zero and stinger morph. And the whiteout with fat tails, that's incomplete dominant, and patternless is recessive. And then actually the stinger and zero are actually related to patternless, but it's like a different line of patternless, but I don't want to get into that.
Hey, wait, can I just intervene here? And we're talking about stuff that has never been made before, right? Like you're basically the pioneer of these type of morphs that you're talking about, correct?
Yeah, the hyperxanthic and the bloods we were definitely pioneers of, because that was all created through selectively line breeding and just making a lineage of an animal that had strong enough characteristics where it could be considered its own lineage, strong enough consistently line bred characteristics. So if you got these animals and bred them, you weren't going to just get a variation. Well, I mean, the leopard geckos are fairly variable, but you're going to be able to consistently reproduce this lineage of animal that has this kind of particular look. Right. And so we did a lot with leopard geckos. And I'm trying to think, but Reptiles magazine, though, that was again, when I was younger, that was my favorite thing to read. It was always awesome. Every month, they had new articles, and that was before the time of podcasts and reptile podcasts, and that's kind of essentially what it was, but in a magazine form, interviews, and that's my favorite thing too, was the species highlight and the breeder discussing whatever species they were talking about for that month and how they bred it, and the process and raising the babies and etc.
What was it? Breeder's Choice in Reptiles magazine, where it's showing off a new morph?
Yeah, then they added that. Yeah, Breeder's Choice. They had that monthly, a new morph or a new gene. That was a really cool one.
That's all we had back then. It's not like now you open up Facebook and everyone just posts this brand new thing they do. Back then, it was once a month you got the magazine and you saw something new if you weren't on blogs or anything else on Facebook or online.
Oh man, think about the time that those times and how difficult it was just to seek information on something that you knew that somebody had. It's I don't know. I mean, even myself, I don't think we understand how easy it is nowadays. You know what I mean? And but what I'm curious with you here, Junior, what was the money like back then compared to now? Even with these new morphs that I mean, I'm sure at some point you're still making new stuff, right? Are there or are you tapped out? Where are you at right now?
Well, with leopard geckos, I still breed leopard geckos even to this day. And leopard geckos are so variable. And actually, if you think about it, MJ, I mean, it's look at koi carp. Look what they've done with koi carp. They started out with just a really pretty carp, and then selectively line bred them to be, black, white, and orange. And they're, and there's koi carp that fetch hundreds of thousands of dollars. Right. Although it's rare, but koi carp, I don't even know how long it took, but it's pretty sure it took hundreds of years to selectively line breed them to get them to that point. And with reptiles, the reptile hobby is very, very young. If you look at it in the sense of what other species, have been worked with and line bred over the centuries, even dogs, even though dogs, it's not really, about color morphs. It's more about line breeding, for different physical attributes and everything. But, if you look at reptiles, I mean, a lot of people didn't get really interested in breeding reptiles and, start really doing that until the 80s and then 90s. And then when morphs start coming out, albino Burmese pythons and albino ball pythons, think albino Burms were from the 80s, and ball pythons, you know, definitely were 90s. But, you know, even like back then, leopard geckos, there was a few kind of like selectively line bred, you know, morphs out there. Like there was stripes, bold stripes, high yellows, but it's like very minimal. So in the sense of time, how long people have been working with line breeding reptiles and creating morphs, it's actually a relatively short period of time. For selectively line breeding, I think most stuff hasn't been selectively line bred, or most species haven't had a lot of people working on projects selectively line breeding them much, except for the past 25, you know, 30 years, maybe max. And that's a stretch because it's actually a lot more popular and common now. And social media has definitely done a huge wonder for, you know, reaching out and getting people connected with, you know, any species of like animal really. But namely what we're talking about here is, of course, reptiles. But, you know, definitely made the market jump a whole lot more, because back then, I mean, the money was a lot different. I do know in the 90s, though, I mean, that was like, you know, there was a ton of money in ball python morphs. I mean, I'd heard stories about, like, you know, piebalds and stuff selling for $25,000 each, and adjusted to inflation. I mean, I don't know what that is, but that's probably closer to $35,000-$40,000 now. And, you know, the dollar went a lot further back in the 90s. And, you know, albino boa constrictors, you know, the, you know, Colin Sharp strains, those went for huge money. So there was a lot of money back then, but all the big money in the late 90s, early 2000s, even though I kind of like, I'd pay attention to market even when I was, you know, young. But, you know, you definitely tell back then that all the big money was actually in, you know, boas, you know, as pythons, you know, boas. That's pretty much where all the big money was at. Some other rare species, but.
I have a juicy topic for like the both of you right now, and I feel like this is super important to a lot of people who could potentially be working with something that nobody has ever actually been successful with. Like, for instance, let's just say, well, I don't want to say Bolins, but okay, let's just say like for instance, okay, the Malukin Python. You know what a Malukin scrub python is? Have you ever heard of Malukin scrub python?
I know about scrub pythons because I know Steven, and, you know, he's the, you know, scrub king.
So let's just say right, Scrub King, right? But yet Scrub King has not produced. He's gonna hate that I'm saying this, but the Scrub King has not produced a Malukin scrub python, right? But somebody has. Somebody got really fucking lucky. Let's just say that. But regardless, they did it. Okay, but they got the hands of something that's never been produced, and basically they can price it whatever the fuck they want, right? So where are we at in the day? Where are we at today where we don't abuse something like that? Like, how do we know how to price something that is so valuable and wanted, but yet we don't make it like something like the Bolins is? Like, for instance, the Bolins should be something where certain people should be able to work with that, but they can't afford a $10,000 fucking $11,000 baby Bolins python. Are you kidding me? Like, that's not feasible for a lot of people. Like, let's just be real. So we don't want to continue this to keep happening, right? So for the both of you, like, how's it going about pricing something when you have something in your hands that's never been made?
I mean, my take on it is this. You kind of set your own markets. You know, markets are dictated by demand. So the reality is, if you have something that is that unique and it's a very high demand, a lot of people are probably going to ask a higher price. And the faster they sell out, they'll probably test the industry year after year, maybe go a little higher. We saw green anacondas do that after you couldn't import them anymore. They were, $200 at a time, maybe $300 at a show. Then all of a sudden, I think at one point we were up to $1,200, maybe $1,400 for a plain green. So I guess it's really what the community is willing to charge and what the community is willing to spend.
What do you think, Junior?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, there's like so much more money in the hobby now because there's just such a large interest. You know, there's just so many different species that if they have the demand, they command like a ton of money. But, you know, I know, you know, Bolins used to be able to get them for like $1,500 each, and they'd be exported, you know, farm raised out of Indo. But right. I think there must be a limitation on that, or something changed where they're not able to get in as many, or they definitely are exporting still some, but it must be in lower numbers, and they must, you know, need a special, or a lot of times certain countries will actually put, I'm trying to think of the word, but they'll basically only allow so many species to be exported. It's kind of like Madagascar. They open and close all the time. They'll open up for like a short bit and then they close. And a lot of times they have, you an allotted amount of the species that they're allowed to export, which is kind of nice because you don't want them abusing, taking them from the wild, anything like that. And then also gives people a chance to try to propagate these and, build on them in captivity. So then maybe you don't need them from, wild animals. But, the prices of all this stuff, it's based on the market growth and, just the demand. Hognose snakes, some morphs go for quite a bit now. I think a lot of it has to do with kind of like, simple math too. If you have a ball python, and it's like a multi, let's say it's a triple recessive and it's a male, you could actually kind of like fairly get a pretty good assessment if you're able to get this snake to breed, how much further it puts you ahead on these projects. And, it's an invaluable thing you're buying at that point because you're buying time. Because, to get further and, to be furthest ahead on a certain project that you really want, and say if there's only 1 or 2 people with it, the only way to make that is to start with like down lower and, breed those morphs, together to try to make these triple hets or whatever, or even get a visual that's double het. But, this multi-gene combination is going to put you years ahead. So you're buying time. But as far as these species where they're just like rare, like a Boelens, and nobody's producing them, it makes sense. If people figure out how to, get them to actually, consistently breed, then the price will come down a bit. But they are such a, unique and nice looking snake. A lot of people are going to keep that price up.
I like to share how. Go ahead, Dave. No, Dave. Please.
Just one thing about the Boelens though, and Junior might know this. So when we were talking back, I think it was like 2002, 2003, you could have bought one for $1,500. Current market now, $10,000.
Easy.
I know we still have some coming in the country from farms, I believe. Someone could correct me if I'm wrong.
No, they're coming in. I know who has them, and multiple people. Here's the thing: multiple people are getting their hands on these.
Okay. Do you think there's as many on the market right now that are being sold for 10 as there was back then that are being sold for 15? I don't know what the Boelens numbers were like coming in the country in 2002 or 4.
Here's the thing: people are having a problem selling them for this $10,000 market, but they're not budging. That's the thing; they don't give a shit. They'll hold on to them if that's the case. They're not selling. They're not selling. Because I know that's the one species I yet to have off my bucket list, and I've been real successful this year with checking bucket list species off, and I just don't. There's something that's telling me don't spend that kind of money on that snake just yet. Not that it's going to drop; it may never drop, but I just can't justify that quite yet. I just don't. I can't. It's a lot. It's a lot of money.
So, do you think there's as many coming in the country now as then, or do you think we have a bunch more back then? Who knows this? Someone's got to tell us.
Junior was around back then. I wasn't.
I don't know. I don't know the numbers. I don't think it was ever a lot, though. It's possible, like MJ. Like the thing is, the overall just market demand for everything is larger now. But say if the numbers are the same amount, but the demand is that drastically more. But then MJ is also saying that he knows people that are sitting on and they're not budging on the price, but nobody's really buying them. So that tells me too. It's like, well, the farms are going to export roughly the same number the following year. So if they still have all of those, and they're trying to resell them at this price, and then they're not able to sell them, and there's being more imported next year of the same quantity, the price should be probably, you got to kind of figure it out, but maybe at least half. I think the one problem is too, is like people know that they're difficult to breed in captivity. They're a fairly large species. You need to have a pretty good size setup for them. They're definitely semi-arboreal. And, it's a lot of money to drop on a couple snakes that, some people might not have the utmost confidence to breed. And then on top of it, they know they could have got them probably for like 70% less if they bought them 3-4 years ago. Because those $1,500 prices I was quoting, those wasn't from 2003. That was like from 2000, like 10 and 11 and 12. You could have gotten for $1,500. It was only like 10 years ago.
No, I want to correct myself. Something that Dave said that stuck out to me, which he for sure nailed it on the fucking right on the kisser. There's motherfuckers in here with money, and they come in and they get so caught in the moment, just like I did right when I first got into this, right? To where they're like, holy shit, 10,500 for a Boelens, which that's what everyone wants, and they happen to have that money. Those people will spend that money. Those are the ones buying those snakes right now. I can tell you that. The ones who haven't been around too long. I can tell you that. It's a lot of the newer impulse people with big pockets who are buying these snakes right now. Let's just say that.
No, nothing wrong with that either. I mean,
Nothing
there's
wrong
always
with that at all.
No.
No, yeah. No.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of surplus money running around right now, and that's the thing. With this surplus extra money, you see what people do with the money. They'll invest it a little more generously into the things that pique their interest, and that's a cool thing about reptiles. I mean, they could be your hobby, your passion, and also a bit of an investment too.
Before we get off. Oh no. Go ahead. Finish. I'm so sorry, Junior. Finish.
Oh, that's about it. I wasn't really going to dive any deeper.
I want, before we get off this topic and get on to the next fucking gear here, I just wanted to see where you guys stood as far as anyone who's really heavily, and I understand this, like I understand being heavily invested into a project, and then all of a sudden fucking Joe Schmo out of whatever Delaware comes out and has that project too, and it's either overpriced or underpriced. Either way, there's people out there upset, and they get upset about somebody pricing something that they have not yet to do. Should they back out of a project like that? Should they stand fucking 10 toes down on it and still price it how they feel it? Like, what does anybody do in a position like that in your guys' from your guys' experience? Anybody could go.
That's a tough one. Yeah, it's a tough one because
Dave loves it.
I'll go first.
Go, Dave.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, roll it out, baby.
I've already forgot half the question. Hold on. Here's the thing. These guys come in, and this has been on any mutation, any specialty project that's happened over the years. There'll be a market price that just seems like everyone has an understanding about, and then another guy will come out, and he'll be half your price, a quarter your price. He sells out immediately, and then everyone else expects you to match that. Now, some people get scared and do run down and match that price, but the reality is when that guy's gone and they're out, you're the only one left to buy from. So you can kind of do it either way. How about you?
Yeah, I've seen the same thing. I remember about a year and a half ago, somebody put up some baby Arctic female hognose for $250 each, and they only had 3 of them. And at the time, I mean, and they still are more than that currently. But I was selling them for like $500, and other people were too, roughly around that price. And that guy sold out of those 3 extremely quickly. And then, pretty much soon after, people forgot about that. And it's like, it's not like, can expect everybody just to lower this dirt cheap price or, this underpriced, animal. But, the one thing was, it's like, that particular person too, they didn't really have, like, they just kind of started their morph market page. So, you're also taking a risk by buying from somebody that doesn't have like, a long-term reputation. And so that's the thing, you could possibly get a sick animal, you could possibly get ripped off. In that case, they looked like they were fine and healthy, but you never know. But yeah, that's the thing. I mean, if people underprice things, it's like a lot of times, unless it's kind of keeps happening and there's other people like starting to jump on it. But, like Dave said, if you expect that those animals are going to sell out, then, just kind of wait on it. And, those prices will, fluctuate back up. And then we've actually seen it too, where prices on morphs actually go back up. Like snow hognose, I used to sell them for $500, probably about 4 years ago. Now they're kind of coming back down a little bit, but they bounce back up to $600-700, and people would sell out at $600 and $700. And I was selling them just a couple of years before that for $500, and so I adjusted my prices too, because as the demand raised, we weren't producing enough for the people that wanted them.
Listen, I don't know how much you follow my other podcast, Trap Talk with the Trap Talk podcast, but people who follow me there pretty heavily know that one of the snakes I talk about the least for sure is a fucking hognose. I'm not a hognose guy, dude. Like honestly, I don't get it. I don't get the hognose, right? But hold on. I know the market out there is tremendous, right? And I want to know what it is that I'm missing out on, and what maybe you can maybe school me on to make me not be such a fucking hognose hater.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I wanted to actually bring that up at the beginning of the podcast. I completely forgot. So I was doing a live stream, and sometimes people request to join my live stream. And a lot of times I'm like, I don't even know who the fuck this guy is, and he just wants to join my stuff. Like it's some weird, like there's one guy kept asking me if I had cobras and his other stuff, and he kept sending me a live request. I was like, I'm not letting this guy jump in. And you could tell like that dude, like he didn't even speak like complete English. So I was like, I'm like so. But a lot of times I'm kind of like I'll go crazy and I'll just like let sometimes random people join. So I let this one dude join, and he was a ball python breeder, and he like didn't even really know who I was. And he goes, "Where are you from?" And he goes, "Oh, you breed hognose snakes." I'm like, yeah. And I was like, that's what we're here and doing it live. I'm feeding baby hognose right now. And he had a ball python. He was talking about his ball pythons. And he actually watched your podcast. He goes, yeah, I watched the MJ podcast. He goes, that guy doesn't like hognose snakes. He goes, he doesn't like him at all. I was like, what kind of fucking person doesn't like hognose snakes?
Are you kidding me? What an asshole! Why would he throw me under the bus?
He said you hated hognose. He goes, yeah, he hates hognose. I don't know who this guy. He was some guy from California. That was before I had my old Instagram account. I gave him this guy a follow back just because we were in this live together. And it was funny. The guy was asking me questions. He goes, huh? He goes, well, why'd you get into breeding snakes? And, we're just like in my live where a bunch of people are watching me that are kind of regulars, and they, watch me feed my hognose, and we talk about hognose. And this guy comes in, he has a ball python around his neck. And
oh, great! Way to fuck! I 100%. This person's not one of my fucking.
I think this guy was like one of your main homeboys, actually. The guy was. He was really.
No. I'm sweating bullets right now. Anyways, please continue. Who the
fuck?
Was it Calvin? Was it Calvin Garcia?
I don't know who it was.
Was it okay? Was it a big fucking? Did he look like a man child with glasses?
No, it didn't look like that. He didn't look like that.
You didn't have glasses on?
I don't know. This was like probably. Oh man, this is probably like 6 or 8 months ago. Probably maybe even 10 months ago.
That's pretty recent, bro. I'm sorry, bro. I feel really bad. Here's the thing. I think people take it wrong. No, they can't take it wrong. I really say I don't like hognoses. That's true. I have to back that up. I can't lie to my boy. You guys are my homies. I can't lie. But it's just my lack. Okay, listen. My space is limited here. So why hognose to me, right? That's just me. Like,
that's fine.
Right, yeah. Right. But hognose market is cracking. Like, should I keep going with all this? Like, there's people in here who are just like hognose over everything. I get it. Hognoses are awesome. And I'm just trying to figure out what am I missing? How hot has the hognose market been from what you've seen, Junior? I'm just curious.
It's been hot forever. It just was like, lukewarm for a bit. So it actually wasn't hot, I guess, because lukewarm's not hot. But anyway, when I was a kid, that's what I was obsessed with, was hognose snakes. And actually, when I was getting into hognose snakes, there wasn't really anybody breeding these things. Like, I'd hear stories. Mostly they're coming out of Lubbock, Texas, from Richard Evans. And he was a guy that owned a pet store, but also bred reptiles. And he primarily bred hognose. He really was, hognose enthusiast. But he would put out like ads in newspapers and shit like that, and go around to ranchers and basically tell them he'll give them like $10 or $15 for any hognose they collect and give to him. And he would get gravid females and let them lay their eggs. And so the only time you were getting hognose in the late 90s, they were either wild caught, like the first 3 or 4 hognose I owned were wild caught, or you're getting captive hatched babies. And I'd hear stories about people getting hognose from Richard Evans for like $20 each wholesale, and he'd send them in like ice cream containers, sometimes still in the egg, like they're Pipping or Pringles containers, like a bunch of stupid shit that you would get slaughtered for doing nowadays. If you post that on Facebook, hey, you shipped out these hognose Pippin, I put them in this empty ice cream like half-gallon container that I just finished off yesterday. But hognose are popular then. Actually, the funny thing is, even in the late 90s, when albino hognose were like $1,500, close to $2,000, that was a lot of money back in the late 90s. And so even back then, they kind of commanded a decent amount of money. And then the leucistic hognose, those were really what really kind of set off some like Coolibrid, like, new morph records where people were paying $10,000 each for them. The only problem was the guy was illegally selling them out of Colorado, so everybody got them confiscated. They went to the couple zoos, then the zoos auctioned them off. Now we have leucistics again. So all that just to give it right back into the hands of the people that just wanted to breed them, which, wasn't, it's definitely not a bad thing, especially if you look at Colorado laws that don't make sense. But anyway, the hognose market, what really helped it, and it's kind of like the ball python market, what helps it a bit is new morphs. Because when you have new morphs consistently coming out, you have new project ideas and you have a lot of enthusiasm behind it. When you don't have new morphs coming out and everything's just kind of stagnant, or there's no new morphs and you've already made all the combos and you've seen all the combos for the same 10 or 15 years, you don't really have any new projects to look forward to. And while you can still appreciate and like that species, there's just not like any need to have, like, say if there's only albino hognose. I mean, I probably would. If there was only albino hognose, I might have like 500 just regular albinos. But at some point, you kind of like, well, I want to work with something a little different and work with different projects. So the one thing that's been a really big helpful thing with hognose snakes, there are a lot of things. Their size their uniqueness, you know, just their overall look. They kind of look like
because they eat themselves.
I don't know if they sometimes will grab themselves accidentally, but king snakes do that too. Hognose are a little quirkier when it comes to that. But with hognose snakes, you can easily remove them if they mistake themselves for food or yourself for food. The ones that eat themselves, though, it's very rare. I've only ever seen it once in my collection. I have seen them miss a meal a couple times and bite themselves, but they immediately release. And but you know, the big appeal of hognose, I mean, is their overall look, you know, and their size, so they're very easy to keep. A lot of people think they're cute. They look really cool. They kind of look like they're venomous. They are mildly venomous. But you know, so there's just a lot of quirky, you know, characteristics to the snake that makes them really appealing to so many people. And then you got all the morphs.
I kind of what really, I will say this, what kind of made me put some respect on the hognose name itself was just seeing them in the wild, like people just seeing them like out and about where they're at, and it's cool that they're out there. And I mean, listen, I'm literally just fucking high horsing off what I have. There's nothing against the hognose snake at all. Like if I had a child and the child wanted the hognose snake, I wouldn't beat the child and say you're not getting a hognose snake. I'll let the fucking kid get a hognose snake. Go ahead, do your thing. I have my Patreon members. More than half of them have hognose snakes. Like, you know what's crazy? You know how many times I've actually walked into somebody's facility and never thought they had hognoses. They have, of course, a rack full of hognoses. You know what I mean? It's something to where if you're in this game and you know what people like, why wouldn't you want to work with hognoses? And I can tell you what, buddy, if there's something were to happen with one of something and all of a sudden I had a rack full of hognoses, I would love those hognoses. You don't think I would give them daily water changes like my other fucking reptiles? Of course I would.
There you go. You might have to start going back and start deleting old files of things you said about hognose snakes.
Nah, fuck that shit. I live to what I...
You've seen walls of hognose snakes and just sweat bullets coming out from your head. You're like, oh, God. You're like 3 years ago I said this about hognose. Oh, geez.
You know how many things I've said on any podcast that I fucking basically that didn't age well type shit. Like, I don't give a fuck. I own I own everything. I don't listen. What makes a man is owning anything, and that's it. Fucking own it and keep it going, and that's all you got to do. What I can't stand, which we won't get into this, is how many people who still have an impact today but don't own shit that they are just piece of shits in, right? And they don't change certain things, and they just, you know, I mean, I don't want to say Dave makes memes of half these people, but I'm just saying, like, there are certain people that just don't turn the corner. All for self, you know, all for selfish fucking, you know, and it's the money, obviously. Let's just not lie. It's obviously the fucking money. But that's where I kind of draw the line. Like, listen, I will never hold back how I feel or what I say because I feel like, oh, this will get me more followers. Like, you know, I mean, people have, you know, even people who tried managing me at telling me like, man, you need to draw children, or you need to like tone down this. And I'm like, no, fuck that. I'm not toning down nothing because that would make me different. And that means like my questions would be different and like my energy and like I would probably overthink things. And like, no, I don't want any of that. Like, and I don't care if that's hurting this channel. I don't care if it hurts any channel. I just want to be original. You know what I mean? Because I'm not in this for the money. I'm really not. Guys, I mean, fuck Dave, you know that. Fuck that shit. I just want to be tapped in more. Like, I want to sit down with people like you and fucking Dave more is what I want. That's what I get fucking hard on out of this. Honestly, what gives me a hard on is hearing Dave's voice. I want to know what the fuck Dave has going on in his mind right now. We have Junior. Let's talk about when Forrest was here in front of us and you're like, I want to bring Junior on the show. He's on the show now. So let's hear it from Dave. I want to hear it from Dave.
Well, I just want to hear more about Junior's got really the coolest hognose collection around. You know, I went about a 5-year period without getting to see it, and then I got to see it about 2 months ago. What the best was that he had 5 years prior. It was a whole room of amazing now. Everything to that caliber, to the next level. Honestly, MJ, you'd appreciate it just because it's so fucking glorious. Really beautiful facility, first off. You get to go through all brand new ARS caging. Polycarbonate tubs, so super clear. You get to see everything that's going on. Honestly, just awesome. I like the new place he picked up, the way he's got everything sectioned off. It's an old, ballerina studio or some shit like that. So you got those wooden, so you got those wooden gymnasium floors. Like I said, just looks really good. And again, with his Instagram, it's really tragic because his last page, 50, 60,000 followers, ended up losing everything. Memes are gone forever. Material that you'll never see again. Like, really a bummer.
Fuck all that. You know, honestly, you know, it is a bummer, but it's it's just not real life. This is why I get more value out of meeting somebody at a show, seeing what their history's been, other than, oh, you have 60, 70,000 followers. That shit could have came out of nowhere, man. And like, yeah, there are some people that deserve a certain followings, but that shit could be built just right back. But you shouldn't rely on it. That's the scary thing. Even with YouTube, like all this is probably temporary. Like that's why people don't understand. Take advantage of this now before it costs so much money to even put shit out on here. Like it's gonna become something where this whole content shit's not gonna be so easy. And you know, as fast something comes, fast something goes. And I feel like, you know, I never really was up on everyone. Like of course I want a big following. I'm not going to lie to you. Right. But I'm not going to collaborate or sticker swap or do fucking shit unorganically to build a following that could just be gone like that. Like, I don't like, it's going to come how it should come. And if it goes, it goes. Just be ready for it. That's just the way it is. I'm ready for my fucking 16,000 followers to be gone on Instagram. Like literally, I literally wake up ready for that shit to be gone. I really do.
Actually, I was kind of anticipating it to a degree also, just because it was happening to so many people. It even happened to Tiki's Geckos, and, you know, he had like double the amount of followers than me. And, you know, a lot of it's just, you know, Facebook or Meta, if you want to call it that. You know, they have just gotten so, I don't know, basically they feel the pressure from, you know, basically just a whole social, like, you know, the dictatorship community or whatever. I don't even know what it is, but they've gotten so sensitive, like, you know, they just keep putting in all these, like, you know, rules and things like, you know, that, you know, just keep like, you can't say this, you can't post this, which is actually hurting them. And eventually, you know, people are going to switch, like, you know, TikTok's a way more user-friendly platform. That's not something I really use though, but like, you know, Patreon and then like,
you want to talk about platform that's almost nearly impossible to use, TikTok. I tell you that. Oh my God. Because you have to run into like 30 of these before you can actually like get to what you need to get to post. Like they make you fucking watch it. Like you're clicking to you're watching something that you don't want to watch. I hate TikTok. Not to be negative. Okay.
I don't like it either.
This is beyond a Hognose thing. I can tell you that right now. I cannot stand TikTok, but also there's so many people out there killing it on TikTok that helps whatever it is that they're doing. And that's like, you know, people hate YouTube, but they have to do YouTube. And I feel like if you're in a business or if you need to get your name out there, you better be using every fucking platform you could possibly use, especially if it's free, because you never know who's going to come across it. Like it's just that plain and simple. It's just hard. It's hard. It's a lot of work. Like, I mean, I don't know, Junior, do you have a YouTube at all? Like, do you have a?
No, I need to actually. I got quite a few requests to start a YouTube, and I'm going to. And I've been saying it for about a year, but it's going to happen pretty soon. I promise. I got to get the. Actually, I was going to ask you, MJ, about your mic, because your mic is really clear. Your lighting's good. So I kind of wanted to ask you about, you know, even after I was going to ask you about, you know, what you use, because, you know, that would be something that I'd be interested in getting just for my, you know, YouTube channel. You know, but yeah, but the thing is too, even though I lost all those Instagram followers, you know, a lot of them too were like, you know, there was a lot of like dead accounts, because like, you know, my Instagram was going on for like 6 years. So there's a lot of people that were following my stuff, but their accounts were basically, you know, not really active. Like they didn't obviously delete the app, but, you know, they probably weren't really they weren't that interactive anymore. And so after I lost it, you know, there was quite a bit of support, and all the people that are, you know, real Hognose enthusiasts and the people that I'm friends with, and, you know, a lot of the, you know, high quality people, they followed my new stuff. And like, I did a live and I was getting just as many viewers in my current live as when I had like 40-some thousand followers. So it really didn't impact me that much to lose that. So yeah, fuck Facebook.
And, you know, also too, bro, like, I mean, okay, like, you don't think I've had the time, I'm embarrassed to say, but yes, I have had the time to kind of look into like the algorithm, or not algorithm, but the analytics behind the average likes behind these 60, 40, fucking $30,000 or 30,000 followers and whatnot. Right. And it just doesn't add up. Like for me, like it just doesn't make sense how somebody who has 40, 50, 60,000 followers has just the amount of average likes as somebody with 3,000, 10,000 followers. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you just can't look at the fucking number. It's like, really, who are the people tapping into your shit when you post something, when you have something for sale? Which, by the way, I could tell you what, I don't know how I'm not I can tell you one of the biggest reasons why I'm scared, that not scared, but just ready for Instagram to be like, all right, MJ, you're fucked, is because I've had so many strikes that they're going back on because I've used the word available in my fucking post. And available is sales in Instagram, and you can't sell shit in Instagram. So I went from getting paid about like $400-500 a month off the reels to where I'm on a suspension. So basically I don't get paid. No, I'm not getting monetized, I think, until the end of December because of all these strikes, which like literally all because it says available, and that's it. It's nothing else. And so, that's why I'm like, fuck, what else are they going to find? Like, are they, I heard Instagram taps into the DMs. I heard they actually look into your DMs and see if you talk about money in your fucking DMs. And that also determines if you get the fucking boot too. So, I mean, who knows?
Yeah, those are private messages. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. And the funny thing is, a lot of people, I don't think they ever really talk about it, but does anybody ever talk about like, hey, why is Facebook so against animal sales?
Yeah, because PETA.
Yeah, PETA. Because PETA bought a large amount of shares in Facebook.
Yeah.
I don't know how long ago. There's $125 million in value in shares. And then shortly after that, now you weren't allowed to sell animals on their platform. Because
same with PayPal. PayPal, there's same shit with PayPal, bro. Like PayPal is going to be, I think I don't know. Am I wrong, Dave? There's somebody said something about a year once that there's going to be no like animal sales whatsoever via PayPal. Like it's coming. Am I wrong, Dave? Or
I haven't heard that yet, but honestly, most of the stuff that I hear about PayPal, I feel is already a rumor. So I don't really know for sure. Because I've honestly never had any trouble on the platform ever. And I've done a lot of animal sales on their last at least decade.
Yeah, I don't think PayPal has been infiltrated that much by, people essentially trying to lobby for their extremist ideologies. So, PETA is pretty good at doing that, but it'd be nice to have some like companies to stand up to them. PayPal did want to start that stuff where we're going to do a $2,500 misinformation fine, and they got so much backlash they completely withdrew that statement. And it's almost like they're just trying to appease the masses by saying, oh, well, we're so great because we do this, or we're just going to follow that. Everybody's afraid to offend everybody now, and can't have an opinion on a lot of stuff. And so it's getting it's definitely pretty exhausting. But
no, go ahead, Junior. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, because if Instagram and here's the thing about Instagram and Facebook, if they ban your accounts for these trivial things, they don't really care that much because a lot of people just make a new account. And as far as your algorithm is concerned, as long as you're making a new account, but they have just so many issues over there too. I really think because the thing is, if you keep putting pressure on small different portions of communities and little niche markets and stuff, eventually a competitor can come along and be like, hey, we don't oppose we don't have all these extreme things that you're not allowed to do like these other platforms, and then they could actually get more business. So I think it makes them vulnerable by excluding these things and making it harder to post things of your own interest.
My biggest I try to bridge certain things that I have no control of, and it's really bad to go down that rabbit hole, but I can't help but to think about it. And my biggest thing I try to connect is for instance, Petco, PetSmart, these big pet chains, right? They don't fucking put not one piece of advertisement about USR. They don't give a fuck, right? But even though we don't have that support, I have a feeling that these big motherfuckers in charge of these big chains are in the pockets of PETA. I feel like there's money being I guarantee there's some sort of meeting to where hey, motherfuckers, I know you're upset, but I don't know. I would hope so. I would hope that at least those fuckers are at least doing that part, but I don't see them folding. You understand how much money, which I don't need to tell you this, but think about the money Petco and PetSmart bring in. You know what I mean? The number one pet trade companies in the United States, right? You think they're going to let somebody like PETA, even though PETA's backed up by all these celebrities and rich fucking people, you're still going against a lot of money. I don't think you're going to fucking take these people out. I don't see that happening. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Are you talking about PETA not being like, ever like succeeding, or
I mean, because like, what's PETA's goal? To take the pets away, right? Isn't that PETA's goal? Like,
well,
take all...
they basically don't want. Actually, PETA is essentially they're nihilistic extremists. Their goal of what they want actually would work, but it'd work in the same senses. Like, if somebody abuses this, just make it illegal. Therefore, it cannot no longer be abused. So you could do that with any substance. You could do that even with people having kids. I could end, child abuse and, world of hunger by just simply nobody's allowed to reproduce or have kids. That's pretty much the ideology of PETA and the Humane Society. Humane Society was infiltrated by PETA because they have board members from PETA now working on the Humane Society. But they don't think people should even be allowed to own cats or dogs. They actually consider it a form of bondage, because the cats and dogs aren't able to consent to being owned. And so that's how crazy they are. Yeah, isn't that nuts? But they don't really, they know they're kind of hard to stomach. It's kind of like a cult. A cult doesn't really try to like tell you everything all at once that they're doing. They kind of, inoculate or get you immune to it, or build up, to the, main point of it. But, because that's a PETA, they don't think people should fish, eat meat of any type, own pets of any type. That includes cats and dogs. They don't think people should interact with animals whatsoever, which is trying to go against evolution of, people's interests and, intertwined, just human behavior that comes with, just living. People, even if you're not a pet person, generally most people do like animals to a degree.
I can't help but to like fucking, Joe Rogan has some guests where like they tap in on it. Maybe it's the mushrooms I'm listening to this, but they have some guests where I'm like, holy shit, what are they talking about? And I forget who the guest was, but there's like there's a group of people who feel like humans purposely made animals seem like they're more stupid than they are, just so we could fucking not, we could always not of course to say that animals are smarter than us, right? But we've always made animals seem dumber than what they are. And they're a lot smarter than what we take them for what they ask. Especially for us being keepers. Would you guys agree to that?
I think to a small degree. I mean, because the one thing is, I think some people, underestimate animals and their abilities, and that's why there's there's a lot of people that research animal behaviors and stuff. And there's always there's a lot of studies like things like rats and stuff. Even I have this stray cat. She's surprisingly smart. She can open up sliding doors. She figured out how to pretty much open any door that she's capable without a handle, and did that in a relatively short period of time just by watching me open the doors. So, but their interpretation of the world's different than ours. And, that's the one thing. A lot of people, kind of like apply how they feel, to project their feelings on an animal and, try to, figure out essentially what an animal feels just from their kind of point of view or their kind of understanding. But
yeah, well, I mean, Junior, my point of view, right? This is like, I came into this with a ball python obsession, right? What does a ball python give you? Not much. Obviously great eggs. If you're in the right game, holy shit, you'll get a lot of money. I love making money, but what else do you get from a ball python? Not much, right? I got into the monitors. I got into some lace monitors. Whole nother fucking ball game, bud. Whole to a sense where, holy shit, either I know that they're hungry for something, like I know there's something that they need. There's a demand for something from these, you know what I mean? And I'm talking about a lot of other animals that are on that kind of level. And that's what makes me reach out to want to work with more stuff that I feel like understands a lot more than we think that they understand. You know what I mean? Like there's definitely levels to this shit, bro. Like it's nuts.
Yeah, different species like varanids and stuff. They're pretty inquisitive, intuitive, and I hear a lot of people talk about their monitors and stuff that they keep as pets, and they seem like they know when they're going to be picked up. They know they look at them, they know when they like you said they want to eat and stuff. They get excited for food. There's that one guy, he has that monitor, the Doc Mertens, and he gives a crayfish. That's really cool to watch. What do you think, Dave?
I don't think I've seen his stuff yet.
Okay, well, what do you think about animals, people not perceiving them as intelligent? It's not that particular instance, but the original topic.
He's like, I don't follow.
Yeah, just don't follow. No, Well, I do think there's a lot of different reptiles that have high intelligence over other ones. I've always felt indigos are highly intelligent. A lot of monitors are highly intelligent. I think retics are highly intelligent the way they watch you. I don't know. It's kind of across the board. I think it's more of maybe a dominance thing or like an alpha thing, like, strongest species theoretically. I don't know. Sorry, I'm zoning out a little bit for some reason.
You're zoning out. Do you still have that spaghetti you're working on?
Yeah, I got like half a bowl of spaghetti left.
That was a big bowl.
What was
It was a
lacing
good sized bowl of spaghetti. It was overzealous.
What was lacing that spaghetti, buddy?
Red pepper.
Dave, okay, let's be honest. One thing that I was really looking forward to tonight's episode was that you said that Junior has history to speak on the Hognose. And because I feel like so many people are really all about the Hognose in the comments, and I appreciate everyone in the live right now. What kind of history were you talking about here, Dave? I'm curious.
Well, a lot of first-time mutations started with Junior, similar like what he did with leopard geckos. He did a lot of line breeding, just keying in on a certain color generation to generation. But honestly, again, how many new mutations have you worked with where you were the first guy to work with it? And then when it comes to new combinations that nobody's seen, you've done quite a few in Hognose.
Yeah. Actually, Kevin Rhodes, he made a book, and he actually would keep track of who made morphs combinations first and who was responsible for making this many worlds first. I'm definitely not going to be number one because there's other people that popped up with like a new mutation, and they can just pretty much immediately cross it into like 12, 15 different things within a period of a year, come up with like 20 some worlds first. So the game's kind of changed to that point. So if you come up with a new mutation, or if you're lucky enough to fall into one, you're going to have probably the most worlds first if you're a good sized hognose breeder. But combinations, I don't know. I actually don't keep track, but Kevin's book from like 3 years ago or 2 years ago had me at like 22 or 23. And there's a few that I didn't get credit for, which I actually did produce. And then I have more since then. So I probably made about 30 worlds first with Hognose. And a lot of that has to it's a result of because I was the first person with the Arctic gene, which is an incomplete dominant trait. So since I was the first person with the gene, consequently, as long as you're, breeding them and you are somewhat, smart about not letting out too many at first, you're probably going to have the most world first combos with that particular gene. And that's kind of what happened. But, I've also selectively line bred the Lemon Ghost and the Woma. But I don't count line bred traits as like, world's first, things as far as if you're going to make combinations with them. I mean, you can. I mean, you could like selectively line breed something, make something really cool. But it's not the same as like, putting a couple of hereditary traits together and making, a multi-gene combo animal. Because, these line bred traits, they're on a spectrum. You do an outcross, it's a little different from, a full version of that line bred trait.
I got a question about the world's first, okay? Because ball python people hate that fucking word nowadays. Like, especially
I don't like it either.
If you're not like a fucking Aussie or Justin or Levance or like somebody like working with that shit, and you're especially if you're somebody new and you drop that world first shit, oh goddamn, right? So somebody like you, like when are you confirmed or when do you feel good about representing something as a world's first?
Well, a lot of stuff I actually kind of know it is, but I actually don't say it is. And that's all I do, and I just post it. And that's the thing I have, like, so if I have some cool combinations and morphs, I just post it. The world's first thing, it can be exciting, but I don't think it is, but I think it can easily be perceived as being pretentious if you post world's first. It kind of seems like it has a bit of arrogance to it by saying it, but some people are just excited. And so that's the thing, so that's, I kind of would avoid it just because, some people are going to interpret it that way. And, and then sometimes you could post something and somebody might actually have it in their collection and they haven't, shared it yet. Because that's the thing. A lot of times when I do produce what is considered world's first, a lot of times I don't share them for about a year or two. This more recently, I've shared some actually a few months later. A couple of people got irritated by it because the one guy came out with like a couple worlds first. And then they had to tell that person that I had him for like a year or two before him. And so then the guy finally said, he goes, well, we need a database and people need to come forward when they produce these things. And so then people, and I wasn't even in the conversation. So people were arguing on my behalf because they're like, well, just because somebody produces it doesn't mean they have to tell exactly what they produced, blah, 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 at first, you know, and all that. Because, you know, a lot of times people want to keep certain projects under wraps until they're ready to release it. And that's the thing, because I feel like working on a project or anything, it's kind of like an art project. You know, some people like to show the process. Some people don't like to show you until they have the final product. And that's kind of how I am. I don't want to show like say if I'm working on some line bred trait, I don't want to show you like, you know, oh, well, this is what it looks like right now and it's not impressive. I want to show it when it's impressive.
You want to know? Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, I was going to say, though, on behalf of the world's first thing, though, you know, the world's first thing was kind of like a badge of honor in the hobby for the beginning when that website kicked up. You know, a lot of people put their stuff on there. And then, you know, the importance for it, too, like, you know, I kind of, you know, it's good for the little guy. You know, somebody coming brand new into this huge hobby, they do something no one else has done before, and that means a lot to them from the outside looking in. So I think it's just different levels. Once you've been in the hobby for a while, you know, it's something that might kind of not be as cool anymore, but honestly, I do think there's an importance there. And I don't like to give people a hard time for saying it, because I'll be honest, I said the same thing when I made my first combo that was the first.
And you're not done also, Dave. Dave, I mean, I'm not trying to take over this episode here about this, but the BOA project that you have going on, I'm excited for you, buddy.
Yeah, no, it's cool to have an opportunity to play with something. You know, it's a rare opportunity, I feel, in this hobby for some people to actually get a new mutation and work it from the ground floor. I hope I don't fuck it up, and I'm going to do whatever I can to make everybody happy. But yeah, I got the first litter, which is good. Now it's just what I do from there. I'll start talking about it a lot more in the next couple of years. But, you know, kind of like what Junior said, it's really cool to hype people up on something, but in the process of hyping people up, they want to buy it. If I don't have anything to sell yet, it makes it really hard to overhype people up for that reason. So, you know, it's going to take a little while, but I'm excited to be working with something because we don't get a lot of mutations in boa constrictors. I feel like there's as many mutations in boas as there is in hognose.
Junior, and obviously you too, Dave, because you guys are both in the realm of working with world first type stuff. At what point does somebody let some of that go to either somebody they trust, which who knows if that's trustworthy, right? Or they hold on to it and just like keep it for themselves. Like at what point do you feel like that's important to either just not letting anything go or maybe let a couple other people dabble in it like that? You know, like how do you determine that?
I don't know, Junior, you do that one first.
Yeah, I mean, releasing stuff early is generally not the best idea. I've done it before, and it backfires pretty horribly. Wow. Generally, the people are very grateful at first, and then later on, it kind of morphs into their, you know, basically, it's essentially their project, and they're like, you know, they feel basically really good because they essentially duped you into like releasing some early, and then they want to get all kinds of adulation for this project, right. And you know, the thing is that's like I'm very fortunate and lucky to be able to work with a species like hognose snakes. They're like my favorite species of all time. They're readily available. They're really popular, and it's real. And there's a lot of people to share that passion with and stuff. And so it's really cool. So, but you know, the morphs and you know all these projects and you know money that comes along with it is just a huge bonus to fuel the passion and you know my lifestyle of working with hognose snakes. But you know, I'd say, I mean, you don't want to overdo it because I see like, you know, you don't want to have like, say, a new morph and you keep it and you just like produce like hundreds and hundreds of them and you make all these morph combinations just simply because you can't stand the idea of somebody making a morph combo with that gene before you. And I've seen that and that kind of limits, I think, to a degree, some interest because like, well, why would I'll still want to get that morph myself, but why would you want to pay a lot for something that somebody's hoarded and kept a bunch of and made a ton of like morph combinations and they have the floodgates ready for any type of order that's ready to come in? I don't think that's right to do either. And those people kind of just want to make sure they get as much money as they possibly can, and to pretty much make sure nobody can outcompete them, which makes sense to a degree. But I think it comes from a sense of like, I guess, greed of just not wanting to miss out. And I think that's kind of, you know, you don't want to get that extreme, because that's, I think, it's definitely in some sense pretty negative. But I'd say, like, you know, at least keep a project for a few years, you know, 2, 3, 4 years. Depends on the species you have to. So, like, if they take 2 years to breed, I'd keep some offspring backs and the hets and combos you make with it. Or like, you know, say if you have that morph and you make double hets, say if it's recessive, hang on to it for like 3, 4 years, you know, tops, and then start releasing some.
What about you, Dave?
You know, I think there's a lot of factors in that. You know, take the person. Some people really value their time a lot higher than other people. You know, maybe some projects you put 5, 10, 15 years into before you even get to the point you can release anything.
Right.
You know, the Anaconda project over at Megan's house, I think that's year 12 or 14. You know,
Shout out to Megan. Shout out to Megan. Shout out to Megan.
Yeah. So, you know, it just depends on the species. You know, like Junior along the way, he did leopard geckos. Leopard geckos can be fed fast. They can get to breeding size fast. So how many of those do you really want sitting around before you start making them available to the market? So, you know, how long it takes the animal to get up to breeding size, age, again, the demand in the market. You know, if you're working with a species that no one's really working with, like if you had a brand new water snake mutation, really it doesn't matter because you have a very small buy-in pool in the first place. So yeah, honestly, you have to tell me the mutation of the species. I can tell you about it, but yeah, everyone's going to be a little bit different based on their markets.
I can't believe I'm about to ask you this, Junior. How would somebody like me, okay, besides if you knew how I really felt about Hognose, but how would somebody like me get into the Hognose game with your advice? Like what's a good first step forward into the Hognose game?
Well, I mean, they're small, they're easy to keep. So really, I would just really ask you how many you felt like you wanted to produce and how many, you know, you wanted to start out with. And then your kind of, you know, favorite morphs or colors that you like, or, you know, I'd show you some mutations or direct you to my Instagram. You know, my Instagram doesn't have, I need to post a little more diversity of mutations I have. It is ask you what catches your eye and what your budget is and, you know, what you feel comfortable spending or whatever that is. And I'd go from there. But, you know, I would, like, for you, since you keep ball pythons, I mean, they're relatively pretty easy. Because they really are. I mean, because I have people that contact me and they're into ball pythons and they're like, yeah, I have my reptile room, but it's specifically pretty much for my ball pythons and that's it. It's like, and they're like, I think my room is too hot. And I tell them the temperatures I keep hoggos at and, you know, the temperatures of my reptile room and where I like to keep things. And they're like, oh, that's actually pretty close to my ball pythons. Hoggos are pretty versatile. They come from the plains and, you know, the central parts of the United States, and they go all the way up to Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Manitoba. There's some isolated populations in Canada up there. And they inhabit these plains and prairies where, you know, there's really extreme weather conditions. They, you know, they'll keep their body temps fairly warm when, you know, when you're feeding them and stuff. So like my hot spots will be anywhere from like 88 to like 92. Sometimes for my babies, I'll even up it a bit more. And then, you know, they need some humidity. They don't need it super humid, but most of these people's ball python room, if it's not like 80-90% humidity, it's like, well, then it's good. If it's 60-70% humidity or even lower, that's fine for hoggos. They'll thrive in that environment. So, I mean, I think your reptile room is already set up and ready for a hognose rack. We just need to find a spot so when people come in there, they'll be like, there's the hognose rack. Just like you see when you go into these other ball python breeders' rooms, there's the hognose rack. You will be one day one of those guys. There's MJ's hognose rack.
Right. But okay. My thing is like hognoses need to be cooled down. Is that right? Do they have a cooling period? Like, or
yeah, if you want to initiate breeding, brewmating, cooling them down does indeed help a lot, and it puts them on, you know, a schedule to basically, you know, for their body to want to naturally, you know, initiate that reproductive cycle. And cooling definitely helps. People do it without brewmating. You can breed them without brewmating, but your success rates just aren't as good.
So it's almost part of the game plan. Like if you want to do it right, you have to do what it takes for them to be, you know, successful at breeding, right?
Yeah, brewmating is definitely important. But the funny thing is, you know, I've actually brewmated them at fairly warm temperatures with pretty good success. And so, you know, you could actually, if you have a spot that say is only in like the lower mid 60s, you know, that's plenty, you know, cool enough. Just keep them dark for 2 months. You know, make sure they have water.
Okay, mid 60s?
Yeah, low mid 60s. You can brewmate them at that.
Bro, come on. I mean, that's ball python people don't have a room that goes to mid 60s. Let's be real.
I'm not saying you keep them in your ball python room. You got to move them out to like, you know, your like
the boreal room. They would have to be in this room.
Yeah.
You think I'm gonna put a hognose in front of these fucking gorgeous, goddamn luxurious piece of fucking work? I would never do that. So you're saying I would need a hognose room?
Well, you don't need a hognose room, but you know, if you have like an area in your garage where it stays like, you know, a moderate temperature.
I try. Listen, at the end of the day, Junior, I love you. I tried to get in the game just now and it failed. I
failed completely.
But I'm not against it. Like, honestly, here's the thing. I'm a numbers guy, bro. I know there's money in the ball python game. Obviously, there's money in the hognose game. Am I right?
There definitely is.
But are we talking about what extreme level to the ball python game? And what I mean is, like, there's motherfuckers selling $50,000, $60,000 ball pythons. Is that happening with the hognoses or no?
I mean, it's not to that extent, but I mean, there is the possibility just because if somebody had like a new morph. I mean, here's the thing with hognose. It's not that unlikely to get people to buy one for $10,000 and $15,000. Leucistics, when they were pretty see, that's the thing with ball pythons. There's such a large market. A hognose market is actually very, very large. It's actually larger than what most people think. Based on I feel like basically really the demand in other countries as well as the United States itself. But with ball pythons, I mean, you have these people with multi-billion-dollar collection and stuff, and there might be some, multi-gene morph or new gene that's incorporated into, a project that they really, really want, and that animal makes sense at $30,000 and $50,000 because they know in the long run the numbers are going to equate. Hognose, there's more people producing them now than the past couple, years. But 2 or 3 years ago, they were insanely underpriced. And that's actually why the price in the market actually went up. Like, there's no other species you could go out and get, like a snow hognose a few years ago for, like, let's say $600. You can raise them up, breed them. A good female might give you 12 or 16 eggs. And you can sell all those babies easily for the same amount that you paid for them. And you're feeding them small meals that don't really cost that much. So your dollar cost average and all that. Because the thing is, I definitely don't like looking at these things as just money, but it is a fascinating aspect of it. And this is part of running a business too. So I am very interested in numbers. I really like numbers. I really like business. But, when I started breeding hognose, you couldn't even make money off of them. And so that's one reason why I am so far ahead, because it is not because of the money. It is why I'm in hognose and why I've had some of these projects going on for 15 or 20 years. Because if you buy like a really nice lemon ghost from me, which is a line bred trait, it's just selectively line bred wild type, just to get the most intense bright yellow hognose you can possibly get. If you buy one of my best lemon ghosts, let's say it's $1,500 or $1,800 or even $2,000, there's really no cap. If I had one of my most amazing ones I didn't want to let go of, I probably wouldn't really sell it for really anything. But if there's a few of those like that and somebody offers me $2 or $3 grand, they might even go for $2 or $3 grand. But I've even told people that, so again, you're buying time. I mean, it took me 15, 18, 20 years to get my best lemon ghost to this point. So the amount of time I have into them and how far it gets you into that project, you're getting that project extremely cheap. So some of these animals, based on what they are and what you can do with them, are, especially with hognose, I see a lot of them are still relatively cheap. I mean, again, it's very easy to buy a hognose, especially color mutation that's popular, keep it and breed it, and then sell the babies for about what you paid for the parents. And, that's not really happening with any other species. And hognose have, they're not the fastest turnaround, but, I'm breeding them at like 2.5 years old.
You want to elaborate on that, Dave?
Elaborate on what he just said?
Yeah.
I don't know now.
Well,
I don't
yeah,
know if anything elaborate on what he said on that, man. I mean, that's definitely, I mean, it's the way he runs his thing. And like you said, he's where he's at right now because he's stuck with something when nobody want him. You know, I've had a couple species over the years I've worked with that nobody cared about them. Nobody wanted to pay anything for them. Then eventually one day came around and people started caring. And that's not uncommon in this industry.
I'm glad you brought that up because there's definitely other species out there that I could think of. One sticking out to mind, and maybe we go around the horn on this one. But what's the species out there that's being slept on, like overly slept on, that could potentially get the right kind of marketing and start picking up? I like house snakes. I think house snakes are fucking really, really awesome. The way I personally, this is me. I feel like if people looked more deeply into house snakes, they would see how it looks like, just like a little tiny mini Burmese, but it's not. It's a really cool looking snake. But I don't know. I just want to talk about more species that aren't worked with that you guys maybe like, and feel like more people like them if they knew about them.
I like house snakes. Honestly, I've been talking about them for 5 or 6 years. I kept on waiting for an opportunity. We've talked about them a little bit, I feel, before. A big collection came over from Africa. The guy pretty much brought everything with him. I think it was like 550 or 60 animals. Every subspecies, locality, every mutation, a lot of multi-gene combos. I know in the hobby who has that now. I don't know if it's big public knowledge, so I don't know if I should say it, but the fact that it's an African species, honestly, it's kind of like the corn snake from Africa. You know, it's a clubrid species that you can keep with your ball pythons. Now, I don't know about the cool down process because that's going to vary with them. I don't believe they all have to be cooled down. I don't know if any of them have to be cooled down. You know that, Junior?
I don't know much about house snakes. There is a decent amount of genes with them that are coming out, but the one thing is they don't really have much pattern. So that's the one thing I think is kind of like a drawback to it. Like any species that's kind of like essentially close to patternless, there's not going to be probably as many mutations to arise that are going to be diverse. Like ball pythons, I mean, ball pythons, but, you know, nothing's going to beat the diversity of them. But, you know, it's at this point, I think you're kind of already seeing the species that have been kind of, you know, more or less kind of slept on with the popularity of, you know, these species being realized through social media. I mean, that's what really, really changed the hognose popularity, was just the strong interest due to them being shown more and more often on social media, their quirkiness, them playing dead. You know, so they were just a very interesting and intriguing snake. House snakes are cool. You know, I have seen, you know, the morphs of them. I don't know a whole lot about them. I know people that work with them. And, you know, I think they're, you know, they got that little, you know, niche market there. But again, it's like with any of these popular species, you kind of need new morphs popping up at least every few years to kind of keep the interest in the ball rolling. That really definitely helps things as far as projects. So, and with the house snakes too, the market here is almost non-existent. It's very rare you see them at shows. So whatever's going to happen with them is going to happen over the next few years based on a few people in the United States that have been working with them. And then, of course, the guy who acquired a big collection. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't even think we really even know the potential of that species yet. Now, I don't think Junior is wrong with limitations on species with no pattern. But, you know, you're going to have your purists that are going to be focused on different locality stuff, different subspecies stuff. So it just is going to depend on the breeder. But I think they'll have a run for a little while, and it's not like they're priced unreasonable right now. It's not a huge investment to buy into house snakes. Yeah. Well, you know, it's another one cool. Dave, you work with them, garter snakes. Garter snakes are awesome.
Bree mainly works with them. I've always been fascinated, and I do think there's a nostalgia there for people in the hobby where the first thing you probably ever caught if you were out in nature was a garter snake. And honestly, if you really start doing the research on the community, some of the locality stuff, there's a lot of mutations, a lot of double, triple mutations out there right now. I could see there becoming a big popularity in those over time, again, just because the nostalgia.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of color variations, garters too. I mean, that you don't see in a lot of other species. I mean, you can get like pretty much any color, like a scheme on a garter snake. I mean, there's blue ones, you got greens, oranges, reds, blacks. You got like pretty much every color. There's Desiree.
Yeah. Another big thing too, like with hognose, very rare to find a hognose in the wild. I've busted my ass and I've yet to see a Western or a Plains or a Mexican. Yeah, I know exactly where they are. I keep going there. I can't find them. But with garter snakes, everyone sees garter snakes. And the cool thing about that, and like you said, mutations drive a community. With Facebook right now, I go on and see 2-3 brand new garter snakes every year from people posting on ID pages and things like that. So there could be a lot more new mutations coming out of the wild in the near future for garter snakes that could really drive them ahead. I was going through some old reptile magazines about a week or two ago, and I found a scaleless garter snake from, I want to say, the 90s, maybe late 90s. And just recently, the first ever litter of pattern or scaleless was like 3 years ago. And that might be the only litter that I'm aware of ever being produced. But we had them 30 years ago, almost 25 years ago. We just now sent the first one 22 years later from completely different ones found in the wild. So garter snakes really could take off because, again, there's a lot of new mutations coming in. And there's a few guys working on it. And I think one of our next podcasts, if we could do a garter snake one, I'd love it. But yeah, no, there's a lot of good stuff coming up in garter snakes, I think. I could really see that species taking off. Honestly, it's ready to be taken off right now. It's already, prices are going up on everything that we were buying a few years ago. Checkers back in the day for the albinos were like $25-$30. Now they're $200 a piece. So they are definitely gaining in popularity.
I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I'm thinking of a colubrid that stood out to me the most. I think it was this year, end of last year, but I was house sitting, or what was it? Oh, it was Anaheim Super Show. Desiree and Steven came to the Anaheim Super Show, and they bought a Honduras milk snake, an Applegate Honduras milk snake, the most vibrant orange-looking fucking thing I've ever seen. And, I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do with this fucking noodle? Like, he's like, oh, just hold on to it for me, for a little bit. Well, a little bit turned into like 3 months. I became like best friends with that fucking snake. That snake was so fucking cool looking. Like, I was like, dude, and like they went a long time without asking for it. And I was like, okay, I hope they forget. I'm not gonna lie, because I'm fucking, dude, this thing is so cool. And I just forget.
I'll tell you, milk snakes, Hondurans, they've been a staple in the hobby before ball pythons were even a thing. Like, things that you're seeing now that you think are relevant were literally produced 20-25 years ago.
Yeah, Honduran milk. I remember Mark Bailey, when I first started, the very first Tinley show that I went to, Mark Bailey actually had mostly Honduran milks on his table. And there was people talking about how he made I think he made like $30,000-$40,000 on like one clutch of Honduran milk snakes back then, because there was this really big boom. But what happened then, there was no morphs. People made the snows. They had, the vanishing patterns and the hypos, and they made ghosts. And, so it seemed like some interest kind of dwindled there. And then the prices came down as these rare morphs became more common, because Honduran milks are pretty easy to breed, but they're very nice looking snakes. But yeah, there was at one point where like snow Hondurans, they were going for like like $5,000 each or something like that. I don't think he made 30 or 40 on a clutch. It was probably less, but I remember it was like an insane amount of money for a milk snake clutch. It was like a lot. It was very impressive back when I originally heard it, and it still is. I just don't remember exactly what I heard. I just remember it was like a ton of money for like one clutch. Maybe it was like $20,000, which is pretty, interesting to hear if you've, kept or know about Honduran milks. Actually, I have a few Honduran milks. I don't have many, but I have a few vanishing pattern ghosts, and I have a couple nice, high-colored red tricolor albinos.
Yeah.
Junior, do you mind if I call my co-guest, my co-host real quick? I want to call him out. Do you mind, Junior?
No, go ahead.
Dave, I feel like you're not hitting us with any heavy topics right now. I feel like you're fucking holding off. I feel like
it's the energy, right? The energy's all wrong.
It's not. Okay, no. The energy can be whatever. It's about what you have in your head right now. What is going on in your head right now? I want to feel. I'm bringing up a lot of touchy stuff, and I have not heard not one touchy thing from you yet. And I want to get touched by Dave Levinson. Touch me.
See, I don't know the thing is with touchy, you just gotta wait for it to happen. Like you said, we're going to get there. Things going to happen. It was a flat first hour, man. I feel like I just woke up like 15 minutes ago right now. So, like, I'm getting back in it. But, I want to hear Junior talk about a lot of this. A lot of these are new for you. I'll be honest, man. I've been having these conversations with Junior for years. I love hearing them. I can tell you every word for word. This is a lot for you, man. I wanted to force the first thing we did together would be Hognose, because you fucking hate him so much. That's really why we're here right now.
I mean, honestly, like, here's the thing. If it wasn't for the whole fucking mid-60 things, I would have sent him a PayPal deposit by now. But I'm understanding that you have to be committed to certain things. And I have a commitment to things that are, just space is everything to me right now. Like, let's be real. Space could really stress somebody out if it comes to something that you don't have. In our world, space is worth more than money. You know that. We need space.
Mhm.
And so my thing is, if I do something, I want to be the shit out of it. And I'm scared that to be the shit at the Hognose game is going to be a lot heavier than how I think it's going to be. Like, it's not going to be a fucking like a here you go type of thing. Like, I'm going to need my own Hognose room. And that stresses me out. Not a big deal. It's okay. I'm not, dude, listen, the Hognose game is heavy. I get it. I know it for sure. I know the Hognose game, heavy hitters are in the Hognose game. I'm speaking of fucking one of them right now. I get it. You know, I listen, Junior, I came into this very late.
Oh, no, it's fine. No, that's kind of how it goes. I mean, like, even my facility is kind of mostly set up. Like, I mean, it could be, you know, I could keep like milk snakes in part of my rooms and stuff. But if I wanted to, like, say, get Leachianus or something and just like keep them in like similar to my Hognose rooms, I wouldn't be able to do it because during the summer they get a little too warm. And, you know, you have your green tree pythons, you have your ball python. So if you have the species you really like and you have your kind of dedicated space for them and they have certain requirements, you know, and like you said, I mean, yeah, if you don't have an area to cool down your Hognose, there are people I know that, like, I know one guy that cools his down to only about 70 degrees and he has pretty good breeding success. I think you could brewmate them right around 70 degrees and keep them dark. And as long as you kind of give them that, you know, cycle, you could still have pretty good, you know, you'll still have good breeding success. Because I had good breeding success even mid 60s. So another 5 degrees to 70, as long as you keep them dark, you take them off heat, I'm sure you could, you know, still breed them. And so, you know, because I know people that do that. But again, there is the cool down period, or at least simulating some form of even a mild brumation, I think is pretty important to kind of, you know, naturally put them in that cycle to want to initiate breeding and reproduce. Because what you're really doing is you're kind of organizing their breeding season. Because if you try to breed them without cooling them down, a lot of people have pretty good success. First-time breeder females actually do a lot better with it because it's their first season ever. So you can kind of almost pick it whenever. But now if you breed that female for the first season, let's say you have 10 females that all bred, and they bred it like, you know, between April and May, and then, you know, you're getting eggs in like, you know, let's say mid-June through like August, because these females ovulated at different times. Now when you go to breed them around the same time next year, that one that produced egg follicles in April might go ahead and produce them in February because you don't have them on a schedule. A lot of them will still reproduce without being cooled, but you're going to have to be pairing them like more often. And you might get some surprise clutches. And then, you know, sometimes a few might even skip breeding. But overall, as long as you have healthy, good Hognose and stuff, you know, a lot of them will still reproduce without being cooled. But, you know, your success is going to be just limited, especially with a bigger collection. A smaller collection would be easier to maintain. But, yeah, there's definitely benefits to brewmating them. You're putting them on that, you know, natural cycle, which is going to make them want to reproduce. And you're going to have them, you know, because when you're slowing them, their metabolism down when you're brewmating them, they're not going to be producing egg follicles or, you know, you're not going to miss anything like that. And so when you bring them out of brewmation, you're warming up, you start feeding them, then you start pairing them and everything, that's, you know, you're going to have a way better success because you're on a pattern there and you're not going to miss an ovulation. You're going to be, you know, on point.
Listen, I miss my boy Forrest. I'm sure we all do. But he had really horrible examples about getting himself way ahead of himself than he should have been. And I was literally a little epiphany of that because I was getting into mangroves, but like colubrid. Like I went from having big snakes to colubrids, and like that's a whole other fucking ball game. But I didn't care. I'm friends with Joe Switolski. I could get whatever the fuck I want, just getting it. But that's not like always the right like organization is one thing you just said is that you have to have with any project. You need to be organized. And what I mean by organized, fuck feeding and cleaning them. That's the easy part. I'm talking about pairing when they have locks, when you see compilation, like when you see things. And it's hard to fucking be on top of 20 different fucking goddamn species like that, bro. Like it's damn near impossible. But a lot of people think they can do it and they just fucking roll into it thinking, oh, it could happen. But honestly, dude, half my fucking if not my whole entire mangrove project went over to Bree over at fucking with Dave, and because she knows what she's doing with the colubrids. I don't, you know what I mean? But a lot of people don't want to learn that kind of lesson, man. Like they need to just kind of be organized. Organization's that's your biggest partner in this shit, you know?
Yeah, no, that's the big key to my success is being organized. And, you know, that's the whole thing. You have to have your breeding projects organized and a lot of things you do. Even if there is some disorganization, you still have to have organization is definitely key with all this.
Uh-oh, Dave, I need you to wake the fuck up because we have William Philippek, who's ready to fucking clean your ass. He will straight clean your ass right now. He's not kidding.
He's my biggest fan. I know this for a fact.
I love William, bro. Hey, honestly, can we just talk about how player William is? I mean, this motherfucker bred white lips this year, okay?
No.
Oh, that's cool.
That's fucking that's some Ryan Young shit there, Junior. You know who Ryan Young is?
Yeah, I know who Ryan Young is. Yeah, I seen Brad McCarthy produced like a clutch of Northern White Lips, and that was like, this is like the only second other person I've actually heard of where somebody knows somebody that actually. I'm sure there's been a few other people, but that's a very, very rare species to see somebody getting a successful clutch from and hatching them out. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I know William will know, but at one point, Ben, I think, had like 6 or 8 of them. I think William got the caging, so William might have got his white lips also, but Ben had a bunch, and I don't know. I guess he just never had a chance to breed them or just wasn't successful with them.
Are they Southerns or Northerns?
I want to say they're probably Northerns because I think the Southerns are the more valuable ones.
The Southerns are, yeah. Southerns are pretty rare.
Yeah, so I want to say it's probably the Northerns. The color looked a little more of that darker brown. The Southerns have a little more like a rustic kind of color kind of coming through. Am I saying that right? A little orange?
The Southerns are usually like more dark. They're usually more like blackish, and they have like more the Northerns are the more goldish colored ones.
Then I put the script. Then shit, he might have had the Southerns.
Yeah, Southern, that's even cooler.
No, it was Northerns that he fucking had eggs on the ground with this year. But I will tell you right now, because I've gotten fresh baby Northerns from Ryan Young. And when he sent them to me, I was like, bro, did you send me fucking Southerns? Because they looked so black, and they were like no gold came in until after the first year. And I was like, holy shit. So I see a big similarity with the blacks and the Northerns, or Southerns and Northerns as babies. But a lot of it kind of shows its true colors after its first year. I can tell you that much from what I've seen. But still, what a huge success. I got to say, I became keen on William after you mentioned him. I think at a show, I think it was Arlington or something. You brought him up or something like that. But shout out to William, man. I got to say congratulations. And thanks for all the support, all the love. I appreciate you. I want to talk about another thing real quick. Dave, unless you have a topic, Dave, I don't want to keep taking over this. I feel bad. I mean, do you have anything you want to talk about right now before I keep going?
I'm going to go with the slow guy. I'll jump in when I jump in, man. You just do you.
Okay. Unless Junior, you have something you want to touch on right now?
Oh, man, yeah, I should have thought of some stuff. I mean, Dave and I, we like, I don't know if we'll try to stay on, reptiles as a topic. Dave does a lot of reptile shows. I feel like there's a question there. Right there,
Oh, yeah.
that was just kind of like, it is just kind of like a comment. Trying to think, what could we talk about?
Well, how about this, Junior? You started going overseas for shows years ago. Jeff, you went to the Japan shows. You went to Ham too back in the day, or was it just Japan?
No, I would actually. It's funny. My dad and I would alternate. I would go to the Ham show in September, and he would go in the March show. At that time, they only had like 2. Then they added the other ones, the June and the December one. Maybe the December one was already. I think the December one was already going on, and then they added the June.
Are we talking vending or just showing up?
No, vending. I'd vend. It was a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
I would have to ship to myself or to a friend there, and they would clear customs, and I'd have to go to customs there. And the guy that would fill out this paperwork that we needed, before we took it to the cargo, we'd have to pay him separately. And the guy every time would just talk shit about the United States and everything. And, this guy was filling out the paperwork and stuff, and I was in my early 20s, so then I would just kind of like sit there and just kind of agree with them, and then whatever he said, I was like, yeah, sure, whatever, because I just wanted to get out of there. And, I went there about, like, I think 5 or 6 times, like, all in a row, and then I stopped going after I was 25. But, I'd still go. I went to the Japan Expo. The Japan Expo is very, very interesting. That's really cool. You know what? I'd actually see a lot of Bolin's pythons there. Not like a lot, but there's always like 3 or 4 every expo over there, and they'd have a lot of exotics like river otters, and they'd even have like a toucan and giant flying squirrel from Indonesia, some pretty interesting stuff. And it was always a good time going over to those shows. But, I stopped going to those because kept getting gastrointestinal infections from the food in Japan. So I was like, this is enough. I don't want to die.
Whoa. We have to hold back here. I just got a plug in Japan, so I need to ask questions before I fly over there and shit happens. What? Hello? What happens? What happens with this?
Well, I've been over there about like 10 times. And so I haven't gotten food poisoning every time. I think for one, I have bad luck. Very bad luck. For one, go and eat at only nice restaurants. Don't listen to some fucker if he says, hey, this place is, well, actually, I didn't really know. I wasn't asking. There's just, stress to eat at nicer, higher end restaurants, especially if it's going to be sushi or anything like that. If you stick to eating cooked food and hot food, you'll be fine. Do that. If they offer you anything weird, don't eat it.
So that's basically it. Just if you stick to hot food, you're okay then.
Yeah, make sure it just came out like freshly cooked and it's, the stuff was cooked. Like you could tell it's like, hey, this was 160 plus degrees. You're good. Eat that one.
But if anything it's sushi, make sure it's expensive sushi is what you're saying.
If it's expensive sushi, yeah. I never got sick from the sushi over there except for the first time. I was there with Daisuke and I didn't even want to go to the fucking place. I always talked about eating sushi over there. And it was my last day there. I was actually about to jump on a plane in about 6 hours. So at that point, I'm kind of just walking around. I'm kind of done with my first time experience in Japan. I'm ready to go home. And he's like, hey, he goes, you wanted to get sushi. I'm like, and I actually wasn't even that in the mood for it. I was like, no, we don't have to get sushi. He goes, no, you wanted to get it. I was like, I'll be back next year. We can get it next year. And we go somewhere nice. And he goes, no, we'll just go to a place. And I was like, oh, okay, if you insist. So we go to this place. It looks a little dingy. But you're already shaking your head. You know what happens. And so after we get done eating there, it was good. Daisuke goes, oh man, you probably shouldn't have ate there. He goes, I'm going to get sick later. I was like, what the fuck do you mean? I was like, and I ended up having salmonella because of that.
Oh my God.
That caused a lot of issues for me later on. Actually, the first time, it really wasn't that bad. It wasn't bad until after I took antibiotics and then that turned into C. diff. And then it was just like a really bad thing. So,
oh my God, wait a minute, Dave. This goes back to the episode live from Tinley where you're like, hey, bud, hold on. Don't drink that beer. He has stomach problems. This is what
he's got to be really careful what he puts in him, buddy.
That triggered. Yeah, I never had any gastrointestinal issues until I got, and that's the thing. There's, if you read about people's ulcerative colitis and stuff, most of them had history of getting gastrointestinal infections. If you get gastrointestinal infections, your likelihood of developing something like Crohn's or ulcerative colitis escalates because you're really disturbing your natural gut flora and then having to take antibiotics and stuff. And, sometimes your immune system just kind of reflares up. So like right now I'm good. I take the supplements, helped me out a lot. I actually kind of briefly talked about it in Tinley and I kind of just stopped because I was like, you know what? I don't want to start rambling about stupid shit about my life history of gastrointestinal infections because we could be talking about hognose snakes or reptile shows or really anything else. I'm going to try to come out to the NARBC show. I don't know if I'll be able to make it, but I think I want to go out there and hang out with you, Dave. The one in St. Louis, although I can't bring hognose unless somebody has a permit that I can sell them under. And they actually said, you can basically sell them on consignment underneath somebody else's permit. You just have to let us know. But Dave, I don't think you got your permit for them.
No, we'll talk about that. Yeah, we don't have hognose here, but there's a couple people in the States that can help you out. We'll have that conversation tomorrow for sure.
Okay.
What about Cali, Junior? I mean, dude, our super shows need a heavy hitter.
I do need I've come out to Pomona a few times.
Dave didn't. Dave fucking left me hanging. He's supposed to come to Trap Fest. Didn't come. Actually, no.
He didn't come.
Whoa, wait. Hold on. He did go to Anaheim though. No, it was a Pomona or Anaheim. What? There was a show you did show up to.
You know what? It was Anaheim, but I couldn't drive. I didn't drive by myself. I ended up driving with Josh and Kendall.
And honestly, at the end of the day, it was my own issue why Dave wasn't there. And if it wasn't my issue, then Dave would have probably been there. So I can't be mad at Dave. Oh, I can't.
I should have been there. I miss out on a lot of stuff. I'll be there next time.
But Junior, I would love to see somebody like him. Goddamn, you're willing to go to Ham. What the fuck? Come to a Pomona or come to Anaheim.
Well, that was a long time ago. So my schedule and how I did sales and everything was very different back then versus now. So that's the one thing is the time constraints. because I make sales basically on a regular basis, daily basis. If I'm not making a sale on a given day, I'm at least working on a sale that's going to probably manifest into, you know, a deal. So
Right.
a lot of times, like I look at it as like, well, if I go to this show, I'll actually make more money just by staying home, and it will be less stress and less things to worry about. Because when I leave, it's quite a big production. You know, I got a lot of stuff here, so I make sure there's somebody here to watch my stuff. And I did actually do the Seattle Expo, and I did Salt Lake. So I could do California. What I really need, though, is like, what I really like to have is to meet up with somebody there, a friend or somebody that can pick me up, do the show. There you go. And so I could ship my animals to you. And, you know, so that way, you know, I'm not like, you know, I'm just not like.
Rami, hey, bro, Rami, the fucking Rami, the king of the West Coast Reptile Show, lives 12 minutes away from me. He drops ticket. It's done. I got you. And I wouldn't, you know, I got you so much, Junior, that I wouldn't even let you bother flying into a fucking piece of crap LA. You're gonna fly into San Diego, buddy. You're gonna fly in style. You're gonna fly in where there's really good sushi food that you don't have to worry about eating.
You can't have sushi. You're not gonna get the sushi.
We'll cook it. We'll fucking cook it. I don't give a shit. 160 degrees in your stomach. Let's go. But I'm gonna take care of you, bro. Get your ass out here. I got you.
All right, we'll have to, because there's the super shows. They still have that one in January.
Yeah, dude. Here's the thing. I'm worried. And Rami, I love you. Rami, shout to the sponsor. I will say Rami's a sponsor, Reptile Super Show. But a lot of bad talk about the last Pomona. A lot of people saying, "What the fuck?" Like, you know, not only from the vendor side, but just, you know, Pomona used to be like the West Coast Tinley. Like, yeah, mainly because Miguel and shit was there, but still, like, Pomona was like a spot. And it hasn't felt like that the last couple times. And I don't know if that's a wave. I don't know if that's a fluke. I hope it is. But I do know that it's not going to hurt if we bring heavier hitters to the table. And for somebody like you who has the kind of foundation that you have, a super show like Pomona could use it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I have done the show a few times, but that was way longer. Last time I was in Pomona was like, I was like 23 or 24. I'm 35 now. So yeah, it's definitely time. And I've had people ask, "Hey, you ever come out to California shows?" So I really, and actually January, things should be kind of slowed up. Babies should be hatched out. Everything should be all, you know, feeding and everything. So yeah, I'll contact Rami and I'll try to set up a Pomona show here in January.
And Dave, maybe you could come.
I'll probably end up coming out if Junior's going to be there.
All right. Well, I'm gonna have to fly. Dave drives everywhere.
He's a fucking animal, bro. Dave be saving people who can't even get to the show. You know what I mean? That's what Dave does. Like it's unbelievable.
I'm gonna need to be saved at some point. Usually, I'm the one that needs saving.
You know, that's the problem with people like Dave. They're always saving, but they're never the saved. And sometimes they need a little bit of saving too. Somebody needs to pick up Dave one time and drive him somewhere. This guy drives like 30 hours straight to friggin' shows.
Yeah.
Really
People do plenty for Dave when I get there. When I don't have my paper towels or my tablecloths or whatever else I forget. So it all comes back.
Listen, Dave.
I flew out. Oh, go ahead.
No, Junior, go ahead. Tell me.
I flew out to Las Vegas. I helped you for a bit, although you didn't need a lot of help because the show was a little slow there on Sunday. But, you know, I tried to help. I helped you pack up.
Yeah, that was the main thing. And I appreciate that.
But Dave, why don't we talk to Junior about the $400,000 in gecko sales that happened at Las Vegas?
Yeah, Junior got to go see that go down. We really, man, I really wanted to talk to Will publicly about that because, man, when he told me that story the day after, or like a week after the show in Atlanta, man, I was on the edge of my seat. But no, yeah, that was just a cool thing to see. I don't think there should be any hate about a thing like that. A couple guys tested out a market, went out with a crazy price. Market could support that price, and they made a killing that weekend. You know, kind of like when you made that comment about what do you charge for an animal, that was a great example. They came out of their market, they put a lot of work into it, they put a price on it to reflect their work, and they had a payday. Go ahead, Junior. What that was honestly because I hit up Pete Call after that because I was curious on what his biggest deals were. Because back in the day at Daytona, man, that guy had some unbelievable deals. There's always rumors about what he made. He never even came close to what those guys did in Vegas that weekend.
Yeah, what would you know what Pete Call's record was for like at an expo, like like free-range sales, like piebald stuff like that? What was his biggest?
I want to say, I'll do a vague answer because I don't know if he wants the exact one out there. It was somewhere between 150 and $250,000 with a little. Then I think there was a secondary deal after that where it might have been like for another 100, 150 from somebody from the show.
That's pretty close. Adjusted to inflation, that's pretty similar because that was it wasn't like so much a prearranged sale because obviously when people come there and they spend that kind of money, you didn't just like have like I'm gonna go walk around the show. You're looking around, you see crested geckos. You're whoa, those are the ones I'm looking for. Can I write you a check for $400,000? But I think it was a culmination of a few different buyers. I'm not the person that made the sale, and I know little about it. I just overheard it. But it sounded like about close to 400 was from these individual customers these were for Korea exports. The crested gecko market in Korea is like insane, and that's the thing. Like
there's literally they sprinted like as soon as the VIP door opened. They
all went right there, huh?
Nuts.
Oh, it was awesome. Yeah, they flew right by my table. I didn't know what the fuck was going on.
How many were there, Dave?
I was like 4 to 6 people.
Okay.
A few guys, couple girls, and they came in, man, and they just went right to the table. But one big thing about what they did that weekend though is I believe they removed all the animals they had for sale off the market. Then they told the overseas buyer, come to Romney's Vegas show. So they started promoting the show through this. And then they showed up, and I want to say they offered a pretty significant discount. Let's say roughly, I think it was like a 15 to 20% discount on total price if they showed up and bought in person. The first buyer came in and cleared them out of every last one they had. It was probably like 9 or 10 of them, maybe a little more than that. And then throughout the rest of the weekend, other buyers came from overseas. People came at the show, but it was a colossal weekend. That weekend, they might have made more money in crested geckos than crested geckos have had in single years in the hobby. Like, it was a big weekend for that species.
Yeah, there's a lot of exanthic lily white males. They were like, what were they priced on the table? Like $27,500, something like that?
I want to say their deal was online. They were $36,000, but if they showed up at the show, they were willing to do them for $30,000 a piece, and the first buyer bought them all.
Yeah, that's a nice discount. Like, $30,000. Let me jump on that.
Well, I mean, it's a huge discount on something that doesn't necessarily have to be discounted. When you talk about a market, they have a big share in that market. They don't have a ton of competitors, so they can pretty much do whatever they want to do with that price for as long as there's people out there willing to spend it. You never really know why projects last as long as they do. Some last for years and years, and other ones nobody gives a fuck. And 15 years later, you're buying them for 10 times the amount of money you could have got them for 15 years prior.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like the math would have made sense because I think for a lot of people, they look at that, they're like, well, how do you buy a couple of these males at $30,000 each? How do you make your money back? But if you really look at it, if you breed these males to enough females, let's say collectively over the next couple of years, these few males breed, however many females, and you get like say 60 or 70 babies from them. Well, if those two males were $60,000 and you breed them to enough females where you get collectively 60 babies as a result, basically those offspring cost you about $1,000 each based on just the male's value. If you're breeding them to headache xanthics or whatever you have, and you're producing xanthic lily whites, then even if the prices come down to like $3,000-$4,000 at that point, you're still going to make a killing because if you have only about $1,000 value, let's say your females, it's maybe more closer to like $500 per baby. I'm averaging this out per baby from the cost of the male and the females are using. You can triple your money, and then you still have that project and you're further ahead than other people, and you're going to have that project for years to come. So it looks like a gigantic sum of money that's going to be hard to recoup, but I don't think it's really going to be that hard. And they know, and there's a reason they're spending that much. They're probably going to do very well off that project.
Yeah. And reality is, at their market, I don't know how many people are importing those animals. They could corner the market in Korea for a little while before they have a whole lot of competition. But no, and like you made the comment earlier about a species gaining traction when there's mutations. We've had crested geckos in the hobby for, has it been 20, 25 years since they found them in New Caledonia? And
Yeah.
I want to say the first shipment in was either 450 or 750 animals, but I think it was 450. So they've been around.
It's been over 20 years.
Yeah. So 20 years in the hobby. All of a sudden, in the last 5 years, you have 3 mutations pop up between the Lily White project, the Cappuccino project. You have, again, the Axanthic project. There's one other project I have a couple of friends working on that they call Translucent, I believe. And then you got all the line bred stuff you've been doing with it for years. Most of the stuff that came in from the wild was pretty basic. And now you got these amazing reds with the Harlequin flames on the side, the pinstriping, some of the heavy Dalmatian stuff. That is a great species to show. It's been around for a long time. You threw mutations, like true mutations, in the mix, and now you got $36,000 animals because they were always popular enough.
Yeah, and that's like you said, David. That actually is a good example of like what a new gene can really do to invigorate, interest in a species that's kind of like even leopard geckos. Leopard gecko market is pretty much flatline. Black Knights still kind of still bring some money. I do well with those super galaxy pies, which are a combination of super snow, which is incomplete dominant, eclipse, which is recessive, and then some line bred components that you get these higher white pie markings. Those are pretty popular, and people are trying to incorporate those in the Black Knights. But the leopard gecko hobby, if you got some new morphs into it, it would definitely jump big time, and you'd have a lot of people that are breeding leopard geckos get a little more excited about projects that have something to look forward to versus kind of line breeding a lot of the not so much same stuff, because I still get excited about some of the projects I have. It would just be more exciting if there was a new gene.
No, for sure. And a unique example I never really thought about, well, I think I've thought about it this way, blue tongue skinks. We've had them for over 20 years. We kind of did our thing with them for the longest time. Brian Barczyk started talking about them on Snake Bites, but then Joe Ball, people at Instagram or Facebook started seeing Joe Ball over in Australia make every mutation you can imagine. And I almost think people seeing him do that over there with maybe the hopes that somehow somebody was going to get him in the country, that also helped with like a 2 or 3 year drive, because when Joe Ball was making his best stuff over in Australia, people were starting to pay top dollar for these animals over here, and we were just working with line bred traits. We now have one mutation, it looks like, floating around in Northerns, and we'll see if that helps things out a little bit. But it makes a white animal, so it's not anything you can necessarily build on. But no, like I said, we never really had mutations, but seeing other people with them overseas, I think really helped that industry.
Well,
maybe,
listen,
maybe not.
Go ahead and get your wrap-up question ready here, Dave, because I got a wrap-up question for Junior here. And Junior, with a lot of stuff that's happened with the times nowadays, especially with Tinley, right? Tinley happened, and then this permit thing came and hit everybody, which kind of put a shock, especially people who were like, oh, maybe I should go to Tinley, and like, oh, what? You need permits for your animals? Oh, this is terrible. Shows are going down the shitter. For somebody like you who's no stranger to shows, what does this permit thing do to you? You feel like, especially if it's something that's going to be required at any show you go to, let's just say in the future around the United States.
Well, you have like Brian and Bob, they put on, a good show, and they got on that really quick, and they had a, on-site, veterinarian to do these health inspections for everybody. And they made it, fairly, affordable and easy. And so as long as, people, because the thing is, it kind of worried some people, but then it even worried me, but then when you're there and you do it, you just fill out the sheet of the species you brought, and the veterinarian comes by and they inspect how you have the animals and how they look. And it's like that simple. And they go, all right, everything looks good. And it's $50. There's pressure from, probably stupid ass groups like PETA and stuff, where they want to like pressure lobbyists. But see, sometimes they get blown off and stuff. Because actually, I know somebody that's like a head DNR, and he goes, they kind of like try to contact us, like not directly, but you can kind of like tell it's them. And they offer some like ideas, so like to lobby for certain like laws, or basically kind of like send out like proposals or ideas and see if they can get them to agree and back it. And he's actually a keeper, and he has an interest. And he's like, he goes, anytime we get anybody like that, he's just like, nah. He goes, we got it. We don't need any advice. So I mean, it's just like a small little thing, but the thing with the health certificate was actually was required for a long time. They just didn't really implement it because a lot of people aren't aware of a lot of these animal laws because a lot of these wildlife officers, they don't even know their own laws either because there's just so many of them and there's so many species. And a lot of these laws are, dated when they were, passed, and they're sometimes almost like nonsense laws. So sometimes they don't even, like a lot of these wildlife officers, they don't even know. But, like with Hognose in Illinois, you need a permit to own them. There, I just need to get like a permit to sell them, and it's pretty simple to apply for. And actually, yes, Scott Ballard actually, it's going to actually be passed 2023, where you'll actually be allowed to breed Hognose in the state of Illinois, and there will be one permit that you can get for multiple animals. And so, the only state now where you can't really own Hognose and breed them, well, aside from Hawaii, because Hawaii you're not allowed to own snakes, but it's just Colorado. So every other state, you can own them. Well, Iowa too. So Iowa and Colorado are the only ones that are out. But there's like, I think you see it everywhere with like social media. Like, see how sensitive social media is. They just want censorship everywhere, and it doesn't apply to just reptiles and amphibians. I think it applies to every aspect of life. And the government's being incorporated a little more here and there, and I don't think it's going to be as bad as most people are kind of anticipating it, because right now we're seeing the most elevated amount. And I think this is kind of like the peak. It's possible we'll kind of keep seeing the same stuff, but with like U.S. ARC suing FWC for their basically hasty and extremely biased, proposition to ban a lot of boas based on very little scientific data that's going to be biased onto their part. It's just, that's pretty cool that U.S. ARC is, going, that route. And, it makes, FWC look a little foolish because they're, pushing for all these little things that they want to have control over, these little, these niche problems, the reptile industry. I think that's very interesting because I've seen that with, other, aspects and basically with wildlife officers and just FWS and DNR in general trying to get behind, let's say, invasives. Like I've seen it with like gobies in Lake Erie. They said that gobies were going to ruin the entire lake. There weren't going to be any walleye. There weren't going to be any bass. They're going to take all of their, they're going to eat all the smaller fish, all the prey fish, low on the food chain, and the gobies were going to outcompete all these other species. And gobies are actually a sculpin. They just like hang out on like rocks and stuff. They aren't very mobile. They don't chase down prey really, and They eat mollusks and stuff. And they did the same thing with a lot of other species. And then meanwhile, they don't talk about feral cats or anything like that because that's too big of a problem. So you got FWC down there trying to look like they're doing something without actually doing much. So they found this nice little target, the reptile community, because we look a little more defensive than other communities, and they're not going to get backlash for coming at us. But now they're getting sued, and hopefully more things like that follow. So then they have to answer, like FWC, whoever is the head of that, has to answer to other people in the government and say, hey, why is this happening? Because they're able to basically do anything because nobody really knows what they do. Because a lot of people that are in government don't have an interest in exotics or animals, and they have no idea what FWC does. All they have to do is like, oh, we got Burmese pythons, we got these problems, we need more funding. And they just have to show data, hey, this is doing this to our wildlife, give us more money. And it's not really that much that they're asking for compared to other industries. So then they get money kicked to them. And, so there's a lot of bias down there. And, the whole feral cat thing, I know some people refer to it as like whataboutism, but whataboutism is, usually when you're trying to divert attention to something else that isn't on the same topic. It really is the same topic. It's it's an invasive species. And when you usually talk about whataboutism, it's usually something that's of a lesser amount or equal amount. Feral cats are a much greater amount. They're actually a much more serious problem than these invasive reptiles. So, that's the, it's, again, we're just an easy target. That's what it is. So they have a lot of these confirmation biased fucking biologists and stuff, write up this stuff about Burmese pythons and, other species. And, then it starts affecting everything else, because now they start looking at everything else, and it looks like they're doing stuff, but they actually are just really coming after the community for, well, most likely reasons based probably more like on PETA, Humane Society kind of ideologies.
Dave?
I think that was a good last question. I don't know. That was a long one, man. That was a good answer. No, honestly, I don't. I'm pretty solid. Honestly, I want to do this again sometime. There's a lot of stuff I want to talk about we never even got to dive into. But no, as long as we're going to do this again in a couple months, I want to do Junior one more time.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if it's one thing I love about what I do is bringing them on for round 2, and Junior's definitely round 2 worthy. I can tell you that much. But more importantly, I got to say this was a long time coming to actually have you finally come on the show and for me to get to know you better, man. It's been an honor. I got to say, Junior, you're awesome. You're awesome people, man. I feel like, as much as I'm new into this, I got to realize there's a whole other world out there besides ball pythons, chondros, and emeralds. Not going to lie. No, with all due respect, there is. Because especially if somebody like myself is building a following, and, if it's one thing I'm realizing that people do listen to what I say, and I got nothing against hognoses. It's just something I don't work with. I mean, like I said, if I had a wall of them, probably feel different, it's nothing haven't been put in front of. And, but at the end of the day, stick to what you love. And that's what I do. I feel like anybody should do that. If you do that, you're in a good place.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'd love to come on it for a second time later on down the road too. That'd be great.
And listen, you're gonna have to come on Trap Talk too, motherfucker. That's the thing. It's I'm gonna need you without this guy fucking being here, because I feel like his looks is a distraction after a while. It's really hard to just look at you and not want to look at him, especially with pussy being all over him. You know what I mean?
My feral cat.
Guys, listen, we had well over 50 people at one point tapped in to the very first ERP episode in over a year. Let's start with you, Junior. What do you have to say to everyone who was tapping in tonight and showing you mad love and support?
Oh yeah, appreciate you everybody for coming on and staying, with this and being a part of it. Yeah, and again, is I'd love to be on your Trap Talk podcast, and actually I got a cat here too that's been distracting me. So Dave's not the only one. Mine's another cat. Mine's the same thing as a stray cat. But yeah, thanks for everybody joining in and listening to us talk reptiles and everything.
Dave, for the people who were so excited to hear from you, even though they didn't hear much, they unfortunately heard a lot more of me. And that wasn't my intention. I'm not here to fucking take over. I need Dave. But listen, Dave, people want to hear from you. People want more Dave Levinson on a podcast. So for the people who are very excited to hear your voice tonight and actually see you, what do you have to say to all your supporters out there, Dave?
We're going to get back to where we left off. It was a very off episode. I don't even know if I was here with you guys. It was a rough one. Shouldn't have been, because I was excited about it all week, man.
That's why Dave wants a do-over. What's the, MJ, that was Trap Talk where you had Dave on, right?
No, it's this one, unfiltered. I mean, I've had the only, wait, hold on. No, hold on. I take that back. I've had Dave on Trap Talk where he spoke out of his ass for the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, I seen that was a very good podcast. That was
a really great podcast. That was a really, really good podcast.
It's not like I'm bad at this. This was just an off week.
Oh, good. We made it happen. We made it happen. That's all that matters. They're not all going to be home runs, buddy. I can tell you what. Yeah. Tinley was a home run. Okay, Tinley was great. Yeah. Tinley was a fucking great time, and I kind of wish that would have been our episode, to be honest. I mean, with us three, because I felt like the element was there. Like we were fucking, man. When I found out it was you, Junior, when I found out you were sitting right there, I was like, holy shit! I heard about you before all this shit even started. So it was great. It was an honor. But like Dave said, we're gonna have you on again. This is where we're getting the wheels moving again. We're getting the fucking motors oiled up, and you'll be back, man. But guys, it's a wrap for the homie here, Junior, over at JMG Reptiles. I appreciate you so much, Junior. Have a wonderful night, my man. Catch you later. Dave, thank you so much. I appreciate you hanging in there. And listen, anytime you talk, it's gold, bro. It doesn't matter. We recorded gold tonight. It was still good. I want to let you know.
We'll get to better things. The rhythm wasn't there. We're gonna get there though.
Is there anything I could do? Do I need to tone it down? Was it me? Like, help me.
No, I can't tell. Are people still listening to us?
Dude, like I said, consistently we had over 50 people. We're at about 45 people right now. I say so. I say so. You know, like, come on.
Yeah, no, we got this. Well, we're gonna be just fine. I'll be ready for this next time.
Do you think you kind of maybe underestimate the energy it takes to do a show like this? Because you work a lot, Dave. Like, you got a lot on your plate every morning. So is it just your week to week that's as heavy that maybe feels like, I don't know.
I mean, my day was a little off today. I thought we were doing this 2-3 hours ago. So like I planned around that, woke up early, worked my ass off all day, and then I was all ready to go. And then I realized I wasn't here on time. And then I went and worked for 3 more hours, and that's what I got left in me. So I think there's a few factors today, but like I said, we'll get there. I love talking about this kind of stuff. The energy wasn't there on my part today. I'll be honest.
But you're here, like I said, and I appreciate you being here. And I know the whole ERP community out there is happy that you showed up. And this is just going to be one of many to come. And we are going to get to work. I'll tell you that. Guess what, Dave? The whole advertising, the promotion, all the fucking thumbnails. You don't have to worry about any of that, buddy. All I need you to do is come to the platform with that Dave Levinson energy. But either way, I appreciate this so much. Dude, honestly, Dave, this is a dream come true. Like understand, Forrest didn't want to do this and rather had you do this instead of him. And, Forrest isn't with us anymore. God bless. But I have Dave Levinson, and we're going to run with this. We're going to do good things. Big things to come from this channel, Dave. I'm telling you right now.
I hope so, man. I'm ready for it, honestly.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for everyone who spent their time here with us. But that's all we have for this tonight's episode. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, drop a comment. What did you like best? What did you learn most out of this episode with Junior out of JMG Reptiles? And I will catch you at the next episode here at the Unfiltered Reptile Podcast. It's an off day. It's an off day. What can I say? It's an off day. I'm with Dave on this one. It's an off day. I'm not feeling it, buddy. I'm out. Let's have a good night. See you guys.